Hi, and this is our continued coverage of what is going to be the most important part of the relay as far as the new government is concerned. Parliament, the 8th Parliament is going to be dissolved in a couple of hours, and the 9th Parliament will begin its work with the swearing in of election of the Speaker and the Deputy Speakers and swearing in of same. And then the members of Parliament will be sworn in as well. It's obvious that Bagbin has no contest. But a number of things are coming up and we need to canvass them on these matters. So you're welcome. This is your election headquarters. And we're here until the inauguration is over. I mean, the inaugurations are over. We have men in Parliament who are ensuring that we have a complete coverage of the process. My name is Samson Ladia Yanini, and I'm here with my friends.
Good evening, Samson.
Winston Anwa is here, and Raymond Aqua. The guys who can deal with the data like nobody's business. You just have to envy the way they are able to do it. Right. So let me begin. What are your feelings briefly about going into the dissolution and the new parliament? Yes, Winston.
Well, I mean, I'm just looking at it, and there's been lots of conversation about. We know who's going to be Speaker of Parliament. We're also aware of who's going to be the first Deputy Speaker of Parliament. But the conversation now is on who becomes second Deputy Speaker. When you talk to some of the members of the majority, incoming majority, the feeling you get is that they may want to cede that to the NPP. There's also a group that is pushing that, what happened in 2005. Remember in 2005, after the NDC presented Peter Alajete, at the time, Oseche Mensah-Bonsu, who's leaving Parliament after, having served 7 terms as Member of Parliament for Swami, actually nominated Malik Al-Hassan Yakubu to become second Deputy Speaker. And I'm sure many of you remember at the time Ken Jirasa, who said that the NDC had sacrificed him because he lost his position of second Deputy Speaker because they tried to present Peter Alajete. What I want to see happening, what I'm waiting to see, is whether the NDC will revenge. Now, there's a school of thought that says, let's work together, so let the NPP have the second Deputy Speaker.
What's your guts feeling?
Well,
will there be a revenge?
I do not think there'll be a revenge, but anything can happen in politics. I always end my statement when I come to politics.
We'll go to Koko Asante and return. We'll go to Koko Asante and return. But Raymond, do you think that the NDC will forgive this sin?
I think the main issue is how there's, if you like, call it elongated or prolonged, come and present the expenditure ahead of appropriation conversation. It angered the grassroots of the NDC. And you start hearing them say, listen, don't give them anything. And there's something new happening in the NDC. Some uproar, it could be engineered, starts from a group of people, it seeps through, and it gets to the top. It's as if there is an innate quest to do everything to appease that group. So they are perhaps the highest group of people who are demanded that don't give them anything. These people are not your friends.
We'll return
to
answer the question if this is good for our democracy, that because of the small numbers of the NPP in the 9th Parliament, does it not hurt our democracy if they are denied any of the deputy positions, as in the second Deputy Speaker position, so that they are completely without any representation in the leadership of Parliament? Kweku Asante, a man who is right there in Parliament, he's been there perhaps the whole day. Kweku, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Samson.
Great. So we have heard Afenyo Akin present some 40 minutes of, call it his farewell speech, and being thankful and gracious to many people, and speaking in a tone that many are wondering, is it the same Afenyo Akin? What is next in the House?
Well, Samson, welcome back to Parliament. As we speak, very few MPs have taken their seat. You see a lot of guests, families, friends of MP-select already taking their seats in anticipation of the swearing in of the 8th Parliament. It's going to be very interesting because of the numbers. So let me chip in briefly because of the conversation you were having with Raymond and Winston about whether or not the NDC will be willing to allow the NPP get some deputies. The second deputy speaker. It's a conversation that is gaining a lot of traction and momentum among the NDC MPs. You will recall in 2005, the NPP side denied the NDC a chance at getting any of the speakerships. That was when the NDC nominated Peter Alajete to contest Bejina Sechi-Hughes, for which reason it angered the NPP. They gave the first deputy speaker to CPP's Freddie Blay at the time, and then the deputy did go to the NPP side. And so the NDC were not represented in the speakership between 2005 and 2009, and that is why a lot of the backbenchers are clamoring for something similar. They say the standing orders is clear that the speaker and the two deputies cannot come from the same political party. So they should give the second deputy speakership to any of the 4 independent MPs who are coming in. As to whether or not the bigger party will give in to that or not, that is a conversation we will get to know. But MPs have now started filing in. George will take you into the chamber. You see 2 NDC MPs already taking their seats in the majority side. That is Ernest Nogbe and Ahmed Ibrahim, who have already taken their seat in the majority leadership. A broad shot will also show you that in Parliament there are 4 sections in terms of the arrangement. Look at where Ahmed Ibrahim and Co are sitting. There is this side, that side, and that. But with the sheer number of the numbers of the NDC, it means that they are going to take over where Ahmed Ibrahim and Co are sitting up until the back. This pew, that pew, and the only side that the NPP side are going to take is that arrangement that ordinarily is left for the minority. I've done my counting. It's about 82 seats there. NPP currently have 88. So if they're able to do some retweaking and add 6 more seats, it can cater for the NPP, which is very dramatic in terms of the numbers in Parliament, which would mean then almost the entire chamber of Parliament to be taken over by the NDC majority for the 9th Parliament, given its sheer numbers currently standing at 183. The 4 independent MPs have also decided they are going to caucus with the NDC side so far. Of course, we are waiting for them to officially write to the Speaker of Parliament confirming that they are going to caucus with the NDC, and then we can take it from there. So something, what is going to happen is that if you go outside, a security perimeter has been set up right at the entrance of the chamber where MP-selects who are coming in will be screened before they take their seats and come in. They will all take their seats between now and 11 p.m. when Alban Bagbin will be formally nominated as the Speaker for the next Parliament. When that happens, and as we speak, we have no indication yet if the majority side will be willing to nominate anybody. What we are picking is that will not happen. They will not nominate anybody to be Speaker. They have 88. If they want to get a Speaker, they would have to pray that at least 50 plus of NDC MPs will join them, and that's an uphill task they themselves recognize will be next to impossible to get, for which reason that is not going to happen. And so we expect that Alban Bagbin is going to have a clean sweep. He'll be nominated, and as per the standing orders, if Alban Bagbin is nominated and there is no other competition, he will be deemed elected. There will be no election, and then he can go up there at 12 o'clock, midnight, and then take his seat as the Speaker of Parliament. When it comes to the first Deputy Speaker, as of now, I can confirm to you that the lawyer and MP for Akachi South, Bernard Ahiafo, is all but coasting to become the first Deputy Speaker. It is the second Deputy Speakership position where we don't have any confirmation and any indication. So between now and midnight, when some of those movements will be done, we understand there's a lot of communication, a lot of conversation between the NPP and NDC leadership to come to some compromise, to come to some arrangement as to whether or not Andrew Amakwe-Siama, the current second Deputy Speaker, will be retained. And if the NPP are going to put someone forward, you would expect that it will be him because of his experience in the last 4 years, given all that has happened with him in the 8th Parliament. He was the key to the NPP side getting the majority in Parliament. So that situation will be taken care of. And so when the MPs-elect all take their seats, between now and 11 p.m., Alban Bagbin will be elected. He himself will be sworn in by Chief Justice Gertrude Tokono. And then after that, the Chief Justice will take leave, and then Alban Bagbin will then swear in the 276 MPs. But as we speak, we don't have 276. The Electoral Commission gazetted 274. 4 of them were set aside by virtue of the Supreme Court ruling, and 3 of them have already been elected again. The NDC has managed to secure an injunction against the Member of Parliament elect for Akwetia, and so that is also outstanding. The Fantiaka North MP elect, who was also an NPP member, has also been injuncted, and so those 2 will not be able to come in if or remain. We are hearing chatter something that the NDC may be willing to present the 4 persons who were earlier declared but who have since lost their seats by virtue of the Electoral Commission declaring other persons as winners. That is the persons the NDC claim have won in Tema Central, Ablekumanov, Okaikwe Central, and Techiman South. Understanding is that the NDC may be willing to bring them in, but if you look at the security perimeter that has been set out, they may not be allowed to come in. But we'll get to see between 11 p.m. and 12 p.m. Also something, the other sticky point is that since 1993, before the new parliament is sworn in, the 2 political parties always announce who will lead them. The NPP side have already announced Alexander Afenyo-Markin as the new minority leader, Patricia Pejei, Habib Idrisu, Jerry Ahmed Shuaib. They are going to lead the NPP side. But when it comes to the NDC side, they haven't yet named the persons who will lead them. As we speak, the most popular name going around, and I'm getting a lot of senior NPP figures giving me that name, is Mahama Ayariga to lead the majority side, but that is not confirmed. And so what is going to happen is that when the 9th parliament starts, the old leadership are going to continue on a temporary basis up until the party appoints substantive leadership. And so Dr. Kassel Atoforsen will be the majority leader for now up until the party appoints someone else to take that role. And then Emmanuel Lamagufibwa will be the deputy, the chief will be Kwame Gavin Sagboja, Ahmed Ibrahim, and Comfort Doyoku Jogansa. Those will be the leaders of the NDC between now and when the party firms up the names of those who will take over. So something, that is the situation here. It is a little past 9 p.m., almost 9:30 now, and only 2 of the NDC MPs elect have taken their seats. We know that the NPP MPs elect organized the retreat at the Alisa Hotel, and they are yet to leave and come here. They've been meeting with Dr. Baumia and other persons to discuss their strategies going forward, given how small their numbers is, how united they can stay to be able to push the agenda of the NPP in Parliament. And so they are yet to come. And a number of the NDC MPs also are yet to take their seat. And that is the lowdown. The Kofi has done a lot of the digging. There are up to 120 new faces who are coming to Parliament, 120 persons who are coming in fresh. They have never been in Parliament before, and they are coming in. And if Collins Dada is sworn in, he now becomes the longest serving member of Parliament. The last time it was Avan Bagwen, who had served from 1992 up until 2020 before he was elected Speaker. And Collins Dada will now assume that as the longest serving member of Parliament. So that is the situation, Samson, as we speak in Parliament.
Right. So practically now, as you educate us, the NPP MPs are going to take only one of the 4 roles in the entire Parliament. Winston, you've heard him.
Yes, I've heard him, but a quick question to you, Kweku, because you talked about a count of the NPP side amounting to 82. Now, I know, and you've talked about 88 members of Parliament. I know the dispute, I know the injunction of Akwetia and Fantiakwa North. That brings it to 86. We do know that then there's an additional 3, which is being disputed. So Tema Central, even though the coalition has been completed, the NDC insists that should not be the case. They are in court trying to challenge that. So we know of Tema Central, we know of Techiman South, and then we also know of Okaikwe Central. That takes it to 83. Help me understand. I mean, since you are in there, can you count those at the majority side so we can begin to do the analysis and find out what could be happening? This will give us an idea of what to expect, going into the night, Kweku.
So 83 seats, like you do the mathematics, and if you count the seats on that very small side, that is 82. And that is, every other seat has been sort of in the majority side. Of course, they are the 4 independent MPs who will decide where they will caucus at. And as of now, they've all indicated they're going to caucus with the NDC. But of course, they have to formally write to the Speaker of Parliament confirming that, and then that will be done. But every other seat is in such a way that is tilted towards the majority side. And the traditional way of doing things in Parliament is that the majority side sit on the right-hand side of the Speaker. What is going to happen is that we are going to have majority MPs who are now going to sit on the left-hand side, because the chamber has not been reconfigured in such a way that the majority side all can fit at the right-hand side of the Speaker. You see the Speaker's chair there, and you see how the Chamber of Parliament is configured. Definitely, some persons are going to fall on the left-hand side, although they are majority members. Every other seat in the Parliament currently are configured in such a way that they come in the majority side of the House. And so that gives us a certain indication of the game plan. And like I was intimating earlier, there's a certain sense that the NDC are asking that the persons who are disputed should be brought in to Parliament today. Whether or not the Marshal to Parliament and the police who are set up right at the entrance will allow that is something that we are going to see pretty shortly. But the NDC insists that their numbers are in such a way that these are all the issues that are going to do. And George is going to give you sort of a view of the chamber again, and then you can see how small the majority side is compared to the minority side. And you see all these roles, like you referenced, something, all of them to be taken by the NDC side. Now, Roxy Nelson Dafa-Mekpo has also joined the NDC MPs in there, with a lot more coming in. A lot more of them are going to start trickling in. And so the sheer number is incredible. That the numbers, it's almost like a sweep. And it's in such a way that they can literally overwhelm the majority in terms of voicing, in terms of voice votes. The Speaker is today indicating that because of the new technology they've implemented in Parliament, it may be possible for MPs to use electronic means to vote. But Winston, to answer your question, only 82 as we speak reserved for the minority side. That is the NPP side. And if all of them show up, the 82 plus the 83, the kind of conversation you did, 83, they can get one more seat to add that. Gavin's coming Abuja dressed there like an Alaji who has just walked in. He is also going to act as majority chief whip up until the NDC appoints new persons to take over their front bench. It's a sight when they are hugging each other because of the sheer number of that they have. And they insist that they are not going to give the NPP any of the disputed seats so far, Winston, Samson and Raymond.
Next one is Obuasi East.
True.
So if you're to add Obuasi East, then it takes you to the 82 that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. So Kweku, please do that check for us. But at least we're beginning to see something. I want you to continue. Cross-check that for us and then get back. Samson is here. Right. We would look at everything concerning that, the legalities and everything.
Kweku, earlier you had given the education to our audiences that the speakership position by the standing orders, there ought to be a nomination duly filed. Does the same thing apply for the deputies? And what do we know about that?
Okay, so Samson, when it comes to the Speaker of Parliament, the new standing orders provide that whoever will be nominated on the floor of Parliament to serve as the Speaker of Parliament must consent in writing. And as we speak, I can confirm to you that Alban Bagbin has written to the Clerk of Parliament accepting that he will be nominated. When it comes to the deputies as well, they also have to go through the same process. They also have to write to the Clerk to Parliament consenting to be nominated as Speaker. And their nomination will just follow like the Speaker. They will be nominated on the floor. A member of Parliament will get up on his feet and then nominate and say, I, Kwame Gavin Sagboja, nominate Alban Bagbin to be the next Speaker of Parliament. It will be seconded. If there's another nomination, that will be done. If there is none, that person is elected. They move on to the first Deputy Speaker. They will go through the same process. And in fact, just around 10 o'clock a.m. today, I cited a letter signed by Bernard Ahiafo addressed to the Clerk to Parliament, confirming that he will be nominated as the first Deputy Speaker of Parliament. What I haven't seen, because of the push and pull going on regarding the the second deputy speaker position is that I haven't yet seen any person acceding to the fact that they will be nominated as the Speaker of Parliament. And Samson, let me take you back briefly, because Winston made a point that is very instructive. The fact that it is possible that the NDC may insist that the Obuasi East MP should not be sworn in. In fact, as of 5 p.m. today, the Obuasi MP-elect, initially, the NDC MP-elect, was on the floor of Parliament and was actually arranging to speak to journalists. And he was given the indication that he will present himself to be sworn in. That may give a certain indication as to why they've only provided for 82 seats for the NPP side. As to whether or not the NPP MPs will allow that or not, are stuff that we'll get to see in the coming hours. So it was when Winston made that point that my attention was drawn to the dynamics that it may appear that the NDC may be willing to bring in the initially declared member of parliament elect, that is for Obuasi NDC candidate, maybe bringing him in, and that is why they've arranged for only 82 for the NPP. And now the numbers are beginning to make sense for me, Samson. But back to your main question, the Speaker has consented to be nominated as Speaker of Parliament. The same for Ahiafo. I can't confirm anything for the second Deputy Speakership position.
Thank you very much, Kwaku Asante. We will be right back with you. We are actually with you throughout the night, so that we give our people, you know, a good and complete insight of what is happening in Parliament. Interesting development there. Yunus Hussaini, former member of Parliament on the ticket of the NDC for the Tamale Central constituency, also former member of the Constitutional Legal Affairs of Parliament and Affairs Committee of Parliament. He's been Minister, Roads and Highways and Lands and Natural Resources. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, sir. Right. Mr. Yunus Hussaini, thanks for joining us. Please unmute your mic. So we are going to be joined by Yunus Hussaini. He is a senior member of the NDC. He may be able to give us some insight into what we should expect. And, you know, Winston had an eye for that question of the 82 seats arrangement for the NPP. And the difficulty that is expected potentially might happen in Parliament is what happens to those beleaguered constituencies. Honorable Yunus Hussaini, thanks for joining us.
For having me, Samson.
Great. I suppose you followed Kwaku Asante reporting from Parliament and the arrangements as far as the seating is concerned.
Yes.
What does it tell you? Does it give you any signals at all?
Well, it will be quite surprising if the members of Parliament elect who have been gazetted for swearing in today are not accommodated in the swearing in process.
But some have their circumstances, you know, not exactly clean as having been gazetted. There are at least two circumstances where we know there are injunction processes. If the indication we heard from Bagwing earlier is anything to go by, doesn't it give you an inkling into what is potentially going to happen in the House? And again, remember that the three other, there were four others, right? Mm-hmm. That the Supreme Court said because the NDC had not been heard in the application for mandamus that led to the recollation and declaration, they ought to be heard, and they were heard. And on Saturday, the High Court gave its decision asking the Electoral Commission to go and do the recollation, so to speak. And Ibi Bright's place was done. Okai-Kwe, Central was also done. And the NDC immediately, after the decision was rendered in the court, filed a notice of appeal and proceeded with a stay of execution.
Yes, Samson, you remember about 2 weeks ago we discussed this matter extensively on your show, the News File, and I deliberately asked the question, what was the effect of the ruling of the Supreme Court overturning the grant of mandamus to the Electoral Commission to go and recollect the results? And both yourself and the other panelist, Kasati, said that was a nullity. I asked that question to confirm what I know in law becomes the effect of setting aside the ruling of a high court. But it has since come to my notice that 3 of the constituencies that were the subject matter of the high court's ruling, which was set aside, has been recollated again and declared. Yes, the NDC has gone to court to stay the process of recollation. But the fact is that 3 constituencies have been recollated. Now, I'm also aware that the former constituencies of the former national chairman of the NDC, Fantiakwa, also something like that.
That's right.
Yes, there is an injunction issued against the MP-elect, preventing him from taking his seat in Parliament, and Obuasi. Now that will mean that the Speaker of Parliament will have to walk a very tight rope. Now, and you recall what I called, in my view, a constitutional crisis. The law is that if the Electoral Commission gazettes the members of Parliament or members of Parliament elect, the Speaker acts on the Gazette, because that is an official notification to Parliament that these are the members of Parliament who have been elected. But then you have the court setting aside a decision, and the Electoral Commission or the parties going back to court, and the court reordering the collation, and 3 of the seats have been collated, 1 not yet, and then there is an injunction. That is what is creating the confusion in Parliament. And I just hope, like I said 2 weeks ago, I just hope that we wouldn't have traversed this road. Because it is my candid opinion that what is playing out now could simply have been deferred to an election petition. We could answer to the mandamus question, and also whether or not the coalition has been properly done, and whether the person so declared has been validly elected. An electoral commission could an electoral petition could settle that matter. Now we've introduced a second variable into determining whether a person has been validly elected, and that is creating this confusion.
Right. So, in the situation where, take for granted that in these 2 places where there are injunctions that have been heard, so to speak, in fact, I'm getting the information that there's about a total of 9 constituencies where suits or writs have been issued and injunction applications pending, so to speak, 9 of them.
Including Obuasi East, anyway.
Yes, I understand they are Tema Central, Fantiakwa North, Ablekuma North, Obuasi East, Kwandai, Techiman South, Akwetia, Okankwe Central, and Trobo. If it is the case that the Speaker has been served with the court processes in these constituencies, regardless of the fact that there were some recollations and new declarations which have been gazetted, and the gazette notifications presented to the Speaker, what will the Speaker be doing if he has been served with the court processes? Where there is an injunction, he's been served. Where there is,
an application.
what's the name? There is a stay of execution, And I suppose this will not be served on the speaker, it will be served on the clerk. Because as we speak in the 9th Parliament, there's no speaker yet. What will happen?
No. I think that the speaker will be advised to take note or notice of those court processes. I think we should give this 9th Parliament should begin with a clear understanding that we want the rule of law to prevail in this country, and that part of the rule of law is obeying the processes of court. And so where the processes have been duly served on the parties, unless set aside, the parties must respect the court processes. And so I do believe that this 9th Parliament will take due cognizance of the fact that we should not treat court processes with contempt.
Explain to a layperson, what do you mean by they should take notice of the court processes? There is gazette given to clerk listing specific individuals. There are 3 forms we are dealing with now. The first group, there is an injunction which has been granted. The second group, there is an application for a stay of that injunction. And the third group is also an application for an injunction which has not been granted. What is Speaker Bagbin supposed to do now? Comply with just the original gazette notice given to him, or decide that I'm picking which of them has a greater force, or which one I would think necessarily would deserve some attention? So he will choose whether or not to comply with all their services and say, so far as you've been injuncted, or even there's an application, stay out of this process. What exactly is he expected to do?
So what I'm saying is simply this. Before the Supreme Court set aside the recollated results of the 4 constituencies, the Electoral Commission had issued a public notification that 274 constituencies had been gazetted. Then entered the Supreme Court, who said 4 of the constituencies, the regulation in the 4 constituencies should not stand because of the breach of the rules of natural justice. So that left the Speaker with 270 constituencies having been gazetted, because the 4 gazetted constituencies were then to be expunged, or effect could not be given to them because by operation of the law, since the foundation on which the gazetting was done had been demolished, the foundation or the structure could not stand again. Now, I have been told that since the 3 of the 4 constituencies have been recollated. Now, if the injunction affects the 4 constituencies or the 3 constituencies that have been recollated, it is my view that the Speaker Bagbin must respect the court processes and not swear in the 3 MPs who are the subject matter, or 3 MPs from the 3 constituencies who are the subject matter of the stay of execution.
Right. So he should not swear in.
Also my view, it is also my view that the injunction issued against the MP-elect of Antiaqua must be respected.
Right.
So it is my view that the matter affecting the Obuasi MP should also be respected. So the 4 + 1 + 1, that is 6, plus the remaining 2 constituencies, unless, of course, the Electoral Commission regazettes the 3 of them which set aside, the Speaker cannot swear them in.
Right. So what are you saying? The Speaker should not swear in those who have benefited from a Gazette notification as a result of the recollated and redeclared results, or should not swear in anybody, any of the candidates from the affected constituencies, so that if we are talking about, say, Okaikwe Central, the Speaker should recognize the process of the stay of execution and not swear in Patrick Boama, not swear in Abu Baba Sadiq, if any of them show up, in Parliament?
Exactly, Baba Sadiq has not been gazetted. See, first of all, the prima facie, if your name is not on the Gazette notification, you cannot be sworn in. That's on the face of it. If your name is on the Gazette notification, but the Supreme Court order affects the notification, you cannot be sworn in. And that affects one of the 4 constituencies, one MP elect of the 4 MPs elect who were the subject matter of the suit in the High Court. Now, the 3 others, which have since been recollated, are now the subject matter of a court process. There's an escalation of the process to the Supreme Court and the stay of execution. It is my view that because the matter is still pending in court, they should not be sworn in for 2 reasons. Since the recollation, we've not heard of the rig of the 3 MPs. I don't know, Samson, whether you've heard that since the Electoral Commission recollated the results, the 3 MPs have been regazetted. Because the fact that they have gone to do the collation does not automatically resurrect the Supreme Court order that set aside the collation that declared them MPs elect. And since nothing can stand on
nothing,
a non-existent fact, the 3 MPs ought to be regazetted. And I'm saying that have been regazetted subject pending court.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. Honorable Yusuf Saini, please hold on for us. We'll return to you shortly. And this is your election headquarters. And this is our continuing coverage of the inauguration of the new parliament. But before that, there will be a dissolution of the present parliament. The present parliament expires before sometime by midnight, because remember that their term of office was for 4 years, and it began from the 7th of January 2021. So midnight, their term extinguished, and the new parliament also comes in. And then during the day, there will be the inauguration of John Dramani Mahama and the Vice President-elect, Professor Jane Nana Opoku Agyeman. We are going to make sure we canvass everything that concerns these processes for you throughout the night, through the dawn, and during the day as well. And Winston Amwa is here, Raymond Akwa is here, and we have also been joined by Yusuf Saini. Kweku Asante is right there in the Chamber of Parliament and brought us up to speed about the members of Parliament coming in, trickling in. So, Winston, you had begun to express the fear that there will be some difficulty in this House.
Yes, because...
What's the sense you are getting now?
Well, I get a sense there's going to be a difficulty. What I want Kweku to check for us is the numbers on the majority side. Once we get the numbers on the majority side, then we would know what is actually going to happen. Then we would also know, so whether or not these members, okay, so if they're not going to be on the minority side, are they going to be on the majority side? And we'll have a sense what we should expect going forward. But of course, he's told us already that...
Okay, so forgive me. For people to understand this point properly, you are saying whether or not Patrick Boama or Baba Sadiq will be in this parliament is still undecided as we speak.
Exactly.
And we don't know that for
That's what it's looking like now.
If for a fact, after the recollation, was it 2 days ago or yesterday? Yesterday,
yes.
Yesterday, and the declaration of Patrick Boama as having won with 21,000 plus, and Sadiq having lost by 19,000 plus. And as Inusa said, if the EC has proceeded after the declaration to gazette Patrick Boama, the EC would have transmitted the gazette notice to Parliament, to the clerk. So Patrick Boama would be sworn in.
Okay.
But because right yesterday, that was Saturday, right after the court gave the decision, the High Court gave the decision and ordered that the EC should go ahead with the recollation. The NDC, being aggrieved with that decision, immediately filed a notice of appeal to the Court of Appeal, and then also filed a stay of execution of the mandamus order. The EC was served. How do we know that? Because as we are told, when they appeared in court, the EC had filed an affidavit in opposition to the grant of the stay order. If you have not been served, you practically cannot come in the matter. So they have been served, so they know. The point then is that the EC ought not have taken the next step by way of doing the recollation and perhaps doing a gazette.
Yeah.
But they have done the recollation and declared. Have they done the gazette? We do not know. But Unisa Hussein is saying, even if they have done the gazetting and the notice of the stay is brought to the attention of the Speaker through the clerk, then the Speaker ought to respect the process and not swear in Patrick. And of course, Baba Sadiq has not been gazetted.
Okay.
To be sworn in, you must first be gazetted.
Okay, so you're not reverting to the old
status quo, no.
Okay, I get the point. But the dynamics change for the other areas. For example, you're talking about stay of execution here. How about in the case where there was an application for an injunction and it has not been granted yet? And already there is someone who was already gazetted, and the EC went ahead and actually did a recollation and declared another person and proceeded to do another gazetting.
So, from again,
I'm talking about Obuasi East first,
right.
In this case.
So, irrespective of the fact that you have been gazetted,
yeah.
For you to be sworn in as an MP, first, let's understand, you ought to have been gazetted. Mm-hmm. The EC must send a gazette notice to the clerk before you can be sworn in or admitted into the House and then be sworn in subsequently. But regardless of the fact that you have been gazetted and there is a suit and there is an injunction, in one case we know there's an injunction that has been granted. In one case we are being told of an injunction application that is pending. In yet another case in Pandai, as I'm seeing right now,
True.
There is also an injunction application that is pending. There are people who take the view, legal scholars who take the view, that the injunction application, when it is served on the other party, it is as good as the order itself. So you hold on, you don't do anything until the application has been decided. From what I'm hearing Inusa Hussein say, the Speaker should respect both situations. If there's an application filed, he should respect it. If there's an order of injunction granted, that one, you clearly don't have a choice.
True.
You must respect it. That's what he's saying. So regardless of the gazette, once you are served with the process, you may not be able to proceed. I'm told that Parliament has been served with an application, the application with stay of execution, seeking to stop the swearing in of the MPs elect for Techiman South, Okaikwe Central, Tema Central. Right, we are just hearing about that right now. Kweku, what do you know about this service? Do you know about it?
So I understand as early as 4 p.m., a court bailiff was quote-unquote laying ambush, waiting for Parliament to suspend the proceedings that was going on so that they can serve the documents on the Speaker. As I have just been told by a source, Parliament has been served with that stay of execution application filed by the NDC seeking to stop the swearing in of the MP select for Okaigwe Central, for Techiman South, and then Okaigwe Central, Techiman South, and then Tema Central. And so all those seats have been declared in favor of the NPP. But I understand the NDC, having filed the stay of execution, seeking to set aside the order of the court that led to the coalition exercise, have been serving Parliament since 4-5 p.m. when the bailiff was in Parliament trying to get this process served on Parliament. And so I was just running some checks, and my indication is that has been served. That is the first three. The other two has to do with Akwetia, where an interlocutory injunction that will last for 10 days has been granted against the MP-elect, the NPP candidate also. There's also the matter of Fanti Akwa North. And the NPP this morning tried but failed to set those orders aside. The first matter having to do with Fanti Akwa North, the judge recused himself from the matter because he said he's friends with both parties. And then regarding Akwetia, the judge affirmed the earlier interim injunction that will last for 10 days. And then, again, there's also the matter of Obuasi East, where the NDC have also filed for an injunction application. So it brings the total number to 6. It goes back to the point Winston and I were making, that it appears that the NDC side, knowing of all these injunction applications and injunction granted, did arrange for only 82. And if you saw in your shot about 5-10 minutes ago, you saw Roxy Nelson Dafabepo coming in here and delineating and sort of saying that every part of this side is for the NDC. Of course, the numbers are humongous. It's huge numbers, as we've seen it, in such a way that they're going to take 3 sides of the House with only one reserved for the NPP. And so we're waiting for the leadership of the NPP to walk in. If all I'm hearing is anything to go by, we are perhaps going to have a very chaotic sitting, just like we had 4 years ago when Alban Bagbin was sworn in. You will recall that during that sitting also there was an injunction that was sustained against Gyakye Quayson. But the NDC MPs fought and got that member sworn in. And later on the court will rule. Consequently, that was set aside. That will take him out of Parliament. He eventually went for a by-election and then won. As we speak, you can see in the shot a number of NDC MPs have come in now. You see Zaneto Ajima-Rawlings there in a conversation with Doyo Kujogansa. You see the Abdul Latif Dan. You see also Kwame Gavin-Sagoja. You see a staff of the majority side trying to look at their pews and ensure that the numbers and the seating arrangements, everything is aligned. Ahmed Ibrahim is still here, holding the fort, holding course before the proper proceedings will start. So, yes, what I'm just getting told, something, is that Parliament has been served with the NDC's stay of execution that is seeking ultimately to stop the swearing in of the MPs elect for Techiman South, Tema Central, and Okaigwe Central. And that is setting stage for fireworks today in Parliament.
Yeah, but Kweku, I wanted to know, just by way of information, how many seats do we have at the majority side?
The majority side, if you look at the current makeup of Parliament is 276. So let me do a quick math. You will realize that there are 194 seats that have so far been reserved for the NDC side, 194. Although as we speak currently, they have only 183. I have no indication if they intend to bring in those other persons to come in to be sworn in. But all the other seats have been reserved for the NDC with the exception of the 82 I should say, that have been reserved for the NPP side there. But of course, if they do come in and their side is able to walk them in, George will show you the Tema Central, the MP for, I'm just forgetting the something. That is the gentleman who unseated Andy Appiah-Kubi. He has taken his seats in the minority side. Kwame Gavin-Sagoja just walked him in. He's an independent MP. He has indicated he's going to caucus with the NDC. Kwame Gavin-Sagoja has just walked him in wearing white and he has taken his seat. Kwame Frimpong, he has taken his seat on the NDC side of the majority side. He has just taken his seat. And so it tells you that perhaps those 4 seats that are independents are all perhaps going to do so. And so Kwame Frimpong has just walked in. He is from the Ashanti region, the heartland of Ashanti, specifically the Asante Achim North. And he has just walked in to the NPP side. This is intriguing. I heard him say he was going to do that. But to see the chief whip walk him in and give him a seat to sit on the majority pews is very interesting. Very interesting. So, Francis, that is the situation here. 82 seats so far reserved for the NPP side. And,
Just so I can get a clarification, because you were talking about...
I'm listening.
You're talking about doing the subtraction. So let's not go into the subtraction. Let's do the counting. Let's do the counting.
Actual seats.
Actual seats. So that I can then go into... Because based on what you're telling me, it would suggest that the areas like Tema Central, Okaikwe Central, and Techiman South would have the NDC members showing up. That is the clarification I want. So please do the counting as you've done for the minority side. Then let me do the addition myself.
So what I'm beginning to see is this, that there are 2 sites in this house. There is no place there's no place for independents. Hold on just a second. There are 2 sides. One side for majority, one side for minority.
Yes. Yeah.
If you are independent, you must caucus with one of the sides.
Exactly.
So
it is
possible that the 190 plus seats for the majority side, it's clearly not for only the majority, because that will accommodate the 4 independent candidates who have declared that they are going to sit with the majority.
But Samson, just look behind you. Just look behind you.
That would be a huge number.
No, just look behind you.
Right, Samson. So
let me
help
the composition. Hold on, quick.
Hold on,
quick. There are currently 100. They are currently.
Hold on, quick. Come again.
I'm giving some information. There are 276 seats in Parliament as we speak. 276. That is to take care of every single member of Parliament that was expected to be elected on the 7th of December, so 276. And the NDC have done a partition because they are the majority, and normally they will lead the process. They have done the partition in such a way that it takes care of all that. Dafemi Mekpo is here. Let me get some information from him because he has been part of the leadership of the NDC who have worked in the first time to try and sort of give. So George, we can do this. Honorable Dafemi Mekpo, I'm just getting information that your side have sort of served Parliament of a sort of a state of execution that you wanted in respect of Tema Central, Techiman South. What is the game plan?
Now, yes, state of execution have been filed and served in respect of some constituencies, including Pandai, including Fantiakwa North, including Akwetia, including Okaikwe Central, including Ablekuma North, Tema Central, Trobu, Techiman South, and there's one Obuasi East. Yeah, so these are the constituencies, about 9 of them, that are under litigation. Now, the appropriate thing to do as Parliament is not to swear them in. But if the minority arrive in a litigious mood and decides to insist that they be sworn in, we will not litigate it. We will allow them to be sworn in. In any case, the law is settled that a person can be sworn in until the final determination of a matter. So when the courts decide the matters on its merits and their supposed election is revoked or otherwise determined by the court, the appropriate remediable steps will be taken. Because today, we're in a happy mood. We are not in the mood to entertain any scuffle, any litigation. Whatever they demand, we'll grant it. Whatever they demand, we'll grant it. So we can have our speaker, our first deputy speaker, they can have their second deputy speaker. So tomorrow morning we can go and get the president-elect sworn in. Yes.
So you don't want any chaos because you assume that could potentially affect all these events that you've lined up?
Of course. You are aware exactly 4 years ago. These are events that occurred and is supposed to be a guide going forward. You see, Sanchu wrote a locus classicus called The Arts of War. He wins who knows when to fight and when not to fight. You must know when to fight and when not to fight. You always will win if you know this principle. So in order to win in life, you must know when to litigate and when not to litigate. So timing is important in everything. Today's timing is not conducive for confrontation because we have been inherent with to exercise the executive power of state. So our decisions and actions will have to reflect that. We are no longer in opposition. So we cannot be acting as if we are in opposition. Yes.
I saw you pretty shortly. The final question prior to go. You were here and you were sort of saying, like sort of drawing a line.
Yes.
Is your indication is that all these three pews, from this side up until their side, is going to be for the NDC majority?
Yes. In fact, the spillover, will hit the first column, the second column, and the third. And then the MPP may have a couple of seats from here because the second deputy speaker will occupy one of those. Yes. And the independent members may also occupy. So this is like the no man's land. This is the boundary between the green zone and the blue zone. The independent members will be ensconced in that region of the house. So it's a total annihilation. The house is green, completely green. Meanwhile, they introduced Green Ghana.
Thank you very much, Honorable.
It's my pleasure.
Something. So
let me use the opportunity to say good evening to my people in South Dine. Some of my constituents are here.
Okay.
And today is a day for merrymaking. I wish them all the best and Happy New Year once more. I'll be home soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, so something, Honorable Dafem was giving us a sort of indication into their game plan, their strategy. Let's say they are not going to fight it. They've served the injunction applications, the stay of executions, the grant, whatever. They've served it appropriately on the speaker. But if the NDC are to come in, the NPP side are to come in and come in a confrontational manner, they will not fight it. They will allow those persons to be sworn in so that the process can conclude early enough for John Mahama to be sworn in. And 4 years ago, I was here when the conflict that we saw, the chaos on the floor, led to a delay in the swearing of President Akufo-Addo for a second term. And they are really bent on stopping that, for which reason they have said that although their insistence ordinarily is that these persons should not be sworn in, if the NPP side come and in a confrontational manner do it in such a way that will lead to chaos and fight on the floor, then they will allow that to go through and will trust that the court process will return a verdict that will lead to what, in their opinion, is the true MP select for these constituencies who then take their feet. And so, constituencies, 9 of them, and that is the indication he just gave me, 9 is the number of seats they are hoping that the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, when he is elected, properly so-called for the 9th Parliament, will decide not to swear them in for the NPP. That is if the NPP really does give in to a fight.
We'll leave you to get to speak to a lot more of the MPs as they come in and the leadership of Parliament. Of course, we know that they are high-ranking members of society and also statesmen and women who are gathering in there. You help our audiences to be able to interact with these people. So the constituency, 9 constituencies that he's talking about are Tema Central, Fantiakwa North, Ablekuma North, Obuasi East, Pandai, Techiman South, Akwetia, Okaikwe Central, and Trobo, which are under litigation. And on the basis of that, various processes in prohibitory processes have been served on Parliament, seeking so that the NPP candidates in these areas who may have been declared or even gazetted should not be sworn in. What do you see in the strategy? I'll come to you quickly. What do you see in this strategy by the NDC majority going into the 9th Parliament?
They know that they are on the other side now. They know that whatever happens in Parliament may have an impact on the actual event they're expecting tomorrow, it would be unwise for you to, right now, seek to stifle your own program tomorrow by insisting on a fight in this parliament. If you are in a minority, creating chaos, sometimes you don't even get blamed for it because you expect that the people of the majority who are leading government business, it is dawning on the NDC that we cannot do business as usual. Those times where they would insist, they will fight everything. Again, they also realize that it makes sense. Let them see through. Let's use the court processes to try and reverse if it's possible. After all, the NDC has a huge number as we speak today. It has numbers that can do a lot with. And if you have that kind of number and you have in excess...
Quickly, let's go back to Parliament, and Sam George is on. When we return, you tell me why, even with a huge majority, they should be making the kind of concessions he's planning that they should do. Because the NPP minority, how many, 33% or less in the House? Let's go back to...
A dissolution happens, do we expect members who are not coming back to the 9th Parliament to also come to the floor this evening?
Well, that's the expectation, but I don't anticipate that. Because of the way the transition happens, I believe that most of the MPs who are not returning would not want to come here at midnight just to come and go through the ceremony of it. And so, but also the question is, if it is the 8th Parliament that's coming to sit now, will the Speaker come in to preside and then leave after the dissolution for us to start the 9th Parliament? That's what ought to be. And in that case, new members of Parliament cannot then sit in the chamber. So again, we need to check with the Marshal's office, because if it's the dissolution that's going to happen now, no new member of the 9th Parliament who is not a part of the 8th Parliament should make entry into the chamber until the Speaker completes the dissolution. So those are all things that I think we'll need to iron out properly, because if you have a new member who is not part of the 8th Parliament sitting in there before the dissolution, that will be contempt of Parliament. That's an illegality. And so we'll need to fine-tune that with the Marshal's Department and see how it goes.
I just did a quick scan of the floor. I saw 4 different sessions, or row if you want to call it, and I did a quick count of the chairs on the far left of the Speaker, because as it is now, we have, after the 2nd row, the 3rd row is entering the left of the Speaker, which is supposed to be the minority, and the majority extending to all of that. 82 chairs on the side of the Speaker. How many is the majority number as we speak today regarding the issues in court as well?
Well, officially, I think we have 183. 183. And this is just akin to my first term in Parliament, which was the 7th Parliament, where the NPP had 169 and we had 106. At that time, you saw that you had a number of NPP MPs sitting on the left of Mr. Speaker as well. They sat all the way, almost halfway through. This time we're going to go much more deeper than they did with 188. But I believe that the dynamics of the House will no longer be that the middle aisle is the separation between the majority and minority. That aisle is going to move. Right now it's going to move way deeper beyond the middle aisle.
Which of the constituencies are you yet to clear to make the 188 that we've all been talking about?
Well, a few of them have been redeclared for the NPP in the past few days. I know that there are court challenges and legal challenges to that. I think that the Legal Office of Parliament has been apprised of that. But for us, we want to have a smooth process today. We want to complete this process. It's my hope that by 1 a.m. we're out of here. We should not have any conundrums when it comes to the election of the Speaker or the first deputy or the second deputy. I think we're clear in our minds who are going to occupy those positions. There should be no vote. It should just be an acclamation. And so I believe that past midnight, within 30 minutes, the clerk should be done with all the processes. The speaker should come in, swear members of parliament in, and we'll proceed. I think I should be very smooth, so we can go have a good. I want my beauty sleep because I want to really look dapper for the swearing in of John Mahama. So we need to get back into bed before 2 a.m. today, so that by 8 a.m. we're back at the Independence Square for the historic swearing in of Ghana's first female vice president and the return of John Mahama. You know, this evening we met with him, and there was a joke some of us cracked with him. You know, in the house here, you have what we call the I shall return phenomenon, where an MP loses. And so, for example, MPs who lost at the end of the 8th Parliament, or 7th Parliament, and were not part of the 8th Parliament, but told us that I shall return, and now have come back in the 9th Parliament. So we said John Mahama is the senior I shall return. I mean, he left the presidency and has returned to the presidency.
Let me end with you, still on some specifics. You have led the coalition process for a lot of, a number of the constituencies that are still in contention. What do you know currently as we speak about Okaigwe Central, Tema Central, and Techiman South as we speak?
I believe that some kinds of declarations have been done. I know that the legal teams are exploring the validity and propriety of the actions that have been undertaken, and so I'm pretty confident that I'll leave that for the legal team to give the way forward. Like I said, I know that there are a few legal actions underway in the court that have been brought to the attention of the clerk, but ultimately today our focus is not on.
Has been brought to the attention of the clerk.
Our attention today is not on any parliamentary seat. Our attention is on the swearing in of John Mahama and making sure that we get that done. And so today we're here, like I said, to have a smooth process.
I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
That's Honorable Sam George there, MP for Ningo Pram Pram, whose term will be expiring in few hours and then renewed for him at the inauguration. And Samson and the rest of the team, this is where the MPs will be making entry to the Chamber of Parliament. We call it the Foley. You see barricade mounted here with police barriers as well as other equipment. This setting up when we go to the floor of the House as at the early part of the evening, as at 7 p.m. This checking up, you can see there an MP being checked before he make entry to go and do his registration. Honorable, let me just have a quick one with you while you go do your registration. Congratulations, you dressed in white. What's the significance?
Victory, sign of triumph over bad governance, which resulted in a humiliating defeat of Akufo-Addo's government. That is why I'm in white.
This whole conversation about some MPs elect not being able to be sworn in today because of the legal actions going on. There's an issue about Okaigwe Central, Ablekuma North, which is yet to be determined, Tema Central as well as Techiman South. From your side of the House, are you still insisting that your candidate still get that, or you expect the Speaker not to swear anyone in as far as those three constituencies are concerned?
No, it is not for us to determine. Once the House is officially served with processes from court, the processes must be respected. If there are injunction orders, they must be respected. And so it is my expectation that once the House has been duly notified about some injunction orders coming from emanating from the court, I mean the court's orders will be respected. If there are pending issues to be resolved in court, I think that the orders of the court, the interim orders of the court must be respected, pending the outcome of the determination of the substantive matters that are before the courts. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Honorable Gaga, you are a ranking on the Defense Committee in Parliament. We've just seen some initial appointment. We've seen an appointment, Honorable Bani in charge of interim security measures under John Mahama before substantive appointment. Some would say they were looking forward to seeing your name. Are we seeing any appointment to Honorable James Aga? Are you lobbying for any position?
No. Let us give the President the free will to exercise his discretion. You know, President Mahama is the most experienced politician of our time. He served as deputy minister before, he served as MP, minister, vice president, president, former president, and once again, president. So you can't underestimate the experience of President Mahama. And so I would wish that we give President Mahama the space.
Same is your level of experience to your experience and expertise in the field of security. Would we see your name in the 60 MPs or appointments, John Mahama?
Rests squarely, within the bosom of President Mahama. Yes, so
but you would accept when it comes.
Oh, but why? Why are you trying to drag me into all these things? Let us give the president the space to constitute his team. And I know at the end of the day, he's going to constitute a very competent team which would hit the ground running. You can trust in the judgment of President Mahama in that regard.
Thank you so much. Honorable James Agalga there, ranking on the Defense Committee in Parliament, speaking to us. I've seen Honorable Van der Poel there. Let's have a chat with him. Honorable, thank you for joining us. Let me just be clear, you are not coming back.
Yes.
So what are you doing here?
My work is done. I'm helping my colleagues to be able to move through the transition very well. I have close to about 30 new guys who need to be taken through some of the, let me say, the labyrinth in the house. So I'm nurturing them. As well, tonight, we need to guide them, we need to goad them so that we'll be able to be part of the decision making and have a smooth, let me say, decision making in the house today.
But how are you able to nurture 30 members of parliament, elect new MPs onto the floor?
Well, across the country for years now, I've been able to cultivate interest in the development of some of our young ones across the country. As we're talking now, in Bono region alone, where I grew up, I've close to about 5 people who are in parliament. In Bono is 2, in Western region 3. So quite a number. In Greater Accra about 4. So we trying to build all of them. And you know, we are the ones who are taking over from the older ones. So people like us, people like me, Eric Opoku, Collins Dauda, Cletus Avoka, James Aveji, and the rest. We are the ones who have taken over from the older ones. And so we need to prop up the young ones who are coming up. And you need to be around to encourage them. Today is their first day. Some of them will be overwhelmed. So you need to be around to give them the confidence they desire and encourage them so that they can be part of the process.
And so you should have stayed to do the grooming properly from the floor of the house, but you've decided to step down.
Others will do the grooming in the house, don't worry. We'll do it from behind. It's always better to have people from behind whilst they are doing it within the parliament, within the jurisdiction of parliament. We can also do it from behind to be able to assist them. And sometimes some of them have that, it's not just a matter of grooming them in the legislature, but some of them are coming to Accra and they may find Accra life a bit difficult, so you need to hold them, take them through places, be able to build their confidence as they go around Accra. Some of them are coming to Accra for the first time, and they need people who can encourage them, people who will direct them where to go, where not to go, what to do and not to do, what to say and not to say, so that they'll be able to find themselves comfortable in Accra.
There are those who say that Honorable Lante Van der Poel has decided not to go to parliament again for some substantive appointment in the next government of John Dramani Mahama. I know in previous NDC government you served as a sports minister, a local government minister, and all of that. The state of sports as we have it now, people think that if you were on the floor, giving you a substantive sports minister would have been easier, especially when your president promises to get just 60 MPs, and per the constitutional requirement, a lot of it must be coming from the floor. Is it true that you decided not to go for a substantive appointment in the next government?
Let me say this, appointments are the preserve of His Excellency the President, and I said whoever he appoints will support the person. Whoever is appointed, wherever he appointed, wherever he asked me to be, I will be there to offer my support to the government and also help in the development of the country. I will help. I will contribute my best to the realization of his vision and agenda, and also to make sure that the resetting will be complete and will really have impact and effect on Ghanaians, so that Ghanaians will have the confidence to return us to power in 2028 and beyond.
But of course, all of this comes with lobbying and all of that. Where is that particular place that if we see your name, we shouldn't be surprised?
I don't believe in lobbying in any way.
You don't lobby?
No. I think the president knows all of us. Mr. President knows almost everybody in NDC. He's worked with all of us. So you don't need to lobby him. You don't need to lobby anybody, because the person who is going to lobby for you, the president knows you more than that person, knows you better than that person. So who are you going to lobby? I think he will make appointments. You've seen his first line of appointments. People he knows, people he's worked with, people he trusts in, he believes in. So he will do the same.
Will you be disappointed if he doesn't trust a job into your hand?
Why should I? He made me a minister some time ago. So if he decides in his own wisdom at this point in time that he's making somebody else a minister, why should I be disappointed? I will still serve him in whatever capacity I find myself.
What's your expectation for tonight? We know that quite a number of activities are bound to happen. Election of a speaker, swearing in with all of the issues about court cases and all of that. What's your expectation? Should we expect any form of brouhaha?
I'm expecting that this night will be very smooth. Everything will move smoothly, and then we shall live here in peace. I don't expect what happened in 2020 to happen today because of our numbers. There's nothing that can happen. So I'm sure everything will be smooth.
Do you expect...
We pray to God that everything will be smooth.
Do you expect your successor to do as well as Honorable Neil Lanteh Van Der Poel has done?
I expect him to do better than I did.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
That member of parliament, technically almost a former member of parliament for Ododo constituency, Honorable Edwin Neil Lanteh Van Der Poel. And as you can see in your shot there, screening for MPs are still happening, so they get access to the floor of the House. So they get access to the floor of the House. I see Honorable Samuel Oku somewhere there. The indication we go from Honorable Honorable Sam George earlier is that if indeed there's going to be a dissolution, what it means is that new MPs are not supposed to make access to the floor of the House. Okay, I see him there. Honorable, congratulations. I mean, you're making your way to the floor. Just a word to your constituents while you get sworn in there.
Jinka. Well, no, but the thing are you okay, no?
Honorable, just a word to your constituents who are watching.
Well, they are going to have a very good MP, that I can assure them. Thank you.
And so that Honorable Samuel Oku there, what it means is that effectively any moment from now, we should be having the processes leading to the inauguration of the House of Parliament. Quite a number of them already here going through the security checks to make their way to the floor of the House. I see Honorable Muntaka Mubarak there also interacting with a number of his colleagues. We're trying to see if I can have access to him to have a word or two from him. Honorable, let's have a word from you. Let's have a word from you. He will not speak to us, but exchanging pleasantries there. So, Samson and the team, I think the hour is drawing near now where the MPs now would have to make their ways to the floor of the House to get themselves sworn in.
And Kweku Asante, all of you in Parliament, we will be staying with you and making sure that we give our audiences, a complete picture of what is happening in the House. Right, so we can see they are flooding in now, and I was saying, and Inus of Hussein is still with us. We'll come to Inus of Hussein shortly because there's something we believe he may be able to decode it. That you mentioned that they have such a huge majority, almost 2/3 majority. So why will they be too willing to allow, as Daffy Amonkor told us, that those contentious constituencies, if the people came in, they will insist that the court processes should be respected, therefore they should not be sworn in. But if the NPP guys insist that they should be sworn in, they would easily allow them to be sworn in. Why would they take that posture when this minority's voice will be so small?
It will be interesting to know for a second what the other game is. And I suspect if you don't engage nicely, as in the NDC to the NPP, don't worry. We'll also act like the hard line when it comes to become second deputy speaker. We will deprive you of it. There's nothing you can do. We will vote massively against whoever you put up. In fact, you need the grace of God to change the minds of more than 50 of our own to actually move to your side, to actually tilt in your favor. So I suspect they know that they are holding the keys there. No, don't fight them over this number. But I suspect they have spoken to them too, that let's manage this in a way that is congenial for everybody, so that you still will get the opportunity of presenting your second deputy speaker. It will be accepted. And if Asiama is still the person that we want to put it up, it will be fine. I mean, I am just looking through the independent candidates. I'm not sure who will be
right. Minister of Hussaini will tell us what is there to lose by exchanging as many as 3-4 MP seats now for, if you like,
the second
deputy speaker position. Do you suspect this is what is happening?
Well, I mean, that's something that could happen. And you can infer that the NDC, because there's been a lot of conversation, about whether or not the NDC should grant, the NPP the second deputy speaker position, and here and there. Do I see? Is that the Akwatia MP I see? Trying to get it. I'm trying to get a closer look at him, but I'll get back to that. But this is it. I mean, they've been trying to get that. I mean, and the NDC has a new approach where it starts from the perceived grassroots. The grassroots has been calling on us to do this and to do that, and then they go ahead and to do it. Now, what I see happening is a trap that they are setting for the NPP or the minority.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. That's the Akwatia MP. But there's another thing.
And Eskumi.
There's another thing. I'll come back to the Akwatia MP's case right now, but there's another thing. You see, when you are in government, when you're about to get into government, the last thing you want is uncertainty. The last thing you want is anything that actually creates uncertainty. In fact, part of the problem, you see, when the NPP was faced with the challenges they faced in 2021, at the point, Osei Mensah Bonsu, and Haruna Iddrisu said it to all of us, that Osei Mensah Bonsu went back and said he wanted to withdraw the nomination of Speaker Michael Quay. That Abba Bagbin will go through. You've heard Abu Jinapor make the point that at that point, they were concerned about the swearing in of Akufo-Addo. Because you are a lawyer, a good one at that, and you know that by midnight, technically speaking, there's no president. And the last thing you want to do is
to delay further
and create anything that could lead to a case.
You hold on briefly for me. We understand that the Defense Minister, Dominic Nitiwul, is with us.
As a court order stops a member of parliament from doing that, or a court order stops somebody who is supposed to be a member of parliament, let's say an MP elect, if a court stops you, that's a different matter. Otherwise, you get elected. But where I take it upon myself, believing that I've won an election, smuggle myself into the chamber and now say that I might be sworn in, is going to just bring chaos and nothing else. And I suspect that's what is going to happen here.
I mean, I'm sure that's with regards to the issues in court for Tema Central, Okaikwe Central, and Techiman South. We get the indication that the clerk of parliament has been given the notice that those issues are still in court, and so the swearing-ins shouldn't happen. If that should go on to happen, what does it mean to the democracy of Parliament and the relation between the legislature and the judiciary, because the orders of the court must be respected at all levels?
Once a member is not served, you assume that you have not been served. If the person has been served, that's the person's headache. If the person does that, the person can go for contempt of court. So that's the person's own headache. If you remember, 4 years ago, the MP for North had a similar problem. Parliament took a decision that is the person's personal problem. So they got him sworn in and said, look, he should go out there and face the public and face the courts. And so the argument was that he himself has not been served. And if you have not been served, it means that you don't know anything about it. The clerk may have been served. That's for the clerk to determine whether he wants to do it or he doesn't want to do it. What I'm saying that we as MPs should not take the law into our own hands and do something that will embarrass ourselves again for a second time. But I just hope that we'll learn lessons from the past and ensure that we don't repeat what the public does not expect us. Otherwise, we'll erode the confidence of the public in Parliament. You understand what I'm trying to say? We are building institutions. Remember that we have tried to build democracies in our short history as a country. We are less than 70 years, but we've already done 4 republics. This is the 4th republic. So I'm saying that Parliament must build a good image for itself, a good image about itself, and a good image for the people they represent. You are the Parliament and the President, or MPs and the President are the only 2 categories of people who will go out there, campaign, and get elected.
So they are the true representatives.
True representatives of the people. So I represent over 200,000 people in my constituency. Over 95,000 voters, but when it comes to the human beings, the people, there are over 200,000. They expect me to behave in a certain way and represent them truly as somebody who is representing them. So what I do, what I say, how I say it, and what I do should represent what the people of Bimbla should stand for. And they should be proud that this is their member of Parliament. That's my caution.
I mean, should the MPs elect who are the center of all of this, your advice is that even as MPs elect, they should respect the rule of law and shouldn't take the law into their own hands. If they should make their way into the floor of the House, would you advise that security prevents them from?
No. If you are an MP elect, your name would have been sent by the letter commission. If your name has not been sent, you have no business coming to the floor of Parliament.
If they do?
That's wrong, and we should stop them. The security should stop such people. If I believe I've won an election and for some reason I've not been gazetted and my name brought to the clerk of Parliament, I have no business coming here. You are a stranger. You have no business stepping on the floor of Parliament. Absolutely, you have no business. And so the security should stop such people. Otherwise, they will bring unnecessary confusion to the chamber. As to whether those who have been gazetted should be sworn in or not, it's between the clerk and the members. Just like the last time, the member got sworn in and he faced the music by himself. And so that's a different thing that we should be talking about. Okay. But my problem is if I believe for some reason I've won an election, that's my personal opinion. But the person who truly will certify that you have won an election is the letter commission. And they will send a gazette notice to Parliament. If they haven't done that, I have no business coming to the floor of Parliament.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wish you all the best. We'll see you later. That's Honorable Dominic Nitiwul there, advising that those MPs whose constituencies are still in contention should actually prevent themselves from getting sworn in, which means that they shouldn't even make their way to the floor of the House to get sworn in, for the respect of the rule of law. Even if they should make that attempt, security must prevent them from getting access to the floor of the House and to prevent any form of chaos. I have a first-timer here from the Southton constituency, Honorable Maxwell Lukuto here. I'm sure a lot of viewers of Joy News would have known him. Honorable, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
So that's in place.
Yeah, sure. Being one of my constituents, I think that it's in place.
Did you have to say that?
Yeah, sure. I want to feel proud that you are my constituent.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
I'm also proud that you are here. And so, I mean, you are making your way to the floor of the House for the first time. tell me, what is the feeling like for you? You've won the election long ago. Now you are going to where will be your official workplace for the next 4 years. How do you feel?
Yeah, so I think the long wait is over, and I wish to dedicate tonight to my constituents, for whom I have fought all these years to represent in the big House of Parliament. I am happy that finally they gave me the nod, and I'm here because of my constituents. I'm happy that I'm finally here. Thank God that we have finally made it, and the long day is here. Finally, we are here, and we are grateful to God that He's made a way today.
Right, so we are still in Parliament, and as you can see, the people are flooding in, the MPs are flooding in, so sometime soon the business will kick in. Let me pick the views of Honorable Yusuf Seni. Thank you very much. I suppose we have a better line with you now. Earlier, we're having a little difficulty with your connection. How do you... Right, I understand that Honorable Yusuf Seni is not with us presently, but we will make contact with him again and bring him in because he is a senior member of the NDC. He will have a better understanding why they have adopted the strategy that Roxanne Nelson Dafiamakpo speaks about. As you hear, almost all the NDC MPs who have been spoken to say that the Speaker must respect the Parliament must respect the court processes. And what they mean by that is that those contested seats, there should not be a swearing in for those seats. But the NPP is also suspecting that there will be trouble. You have heard Dominic Nitiwo. He's very clear about it, what they suspect will happen. How do we avoid that? But we want to understand what is going into what is in the psyche or what is in the strategy of the NDC that with the majority that they have, they still say that if the NPP insists that those people should be sworn in, they will just simply give in and ask them to be sworn in because they don't want to be disturbed. You were making the point that while they are coming into government, they are no longer in the opposition.
Yeah.
And so they will not want there to be any hitches.
Look, Samson, you're expecting John Mahama, President-elect John Mahama. I mean, we always call him president. So president.
Is it a suggestion that this minority can do anything about him being sworn in?
Cannot do anything
in good time.
But what the minority can actually do is to delay.
Or frustrate the process.
Or frustrate the process.
How?
They can frustrate because you see, if the minority insists and the majority decides to punish them by electing somebody for second deputy speaker, it means we go into an election. That is about 2 to 3 hours of elections.
True.
That takes us to about 6 p.m. 6 a.m., I beg your pardon. When are you going to go back home, get ready, and then show up at the Independence Square? So if you are the NDC, you know that, look, this is not something you want to fight. After all, you currently have 183 members of parliament, together with the 2 who are your members of the party. You have 185.
All right.
You just have absolute majority.
Let's go back. We understand Kujopon Nkrumah, Fuase Ayirebi Kokobeng, is it? He is also, yes, he is also on with us.
Be in the executive branch, and they have given them some overwhelming numbers to work with. But be that as it may, we are minded that we will discharge our obligations as the opposition with utmost fidelity to the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. And so the numbers, as daunting as they may look, they do not deter us from the kind of work that must be done. As our leader mentioned, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who is the leader currently of the NPP, mentioned, we will not be an obstructive opposition, but we will do our job with fidelity to the Constitution, and we will assist the governing party to deliver on their commitments to the good people of Ghana.
There's the conversation as we speak about some constituencies who should make it to the floor and who should not make it to the floor. For instance, the three constituencies, Tema Central, Okaikwe Central, and Techiman South, we are told that the NDC have been able to serve a notice to the Clerk of Parliament not to swear the NPP MPs who have been declared on the floor of the House. If those people should make their way in, do we have a possible chaos on our hands on the floor of the House?
I mean, you're asking me to predict the future. I can't predict the future. We are not aware of...
Looking back at what happened the last 4 years.
Well, I can't predict the future. We are not aware of these things that you are talking about. We are clear in our minds who's won those seats, who's been declared, who's been gazetted, and we will be working, as I mentioned, in strict fidelity to the Constitution and to the laws of this country. If the laws are quite clear about who's won and who's been gazetted, we will work with that.
Do you expect those three to be sworn in tonight?
I do expect that they will be sworn in tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Honorable Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah, MP for Ofoase Ayerebe there. He's made a comeback to this parliament, also trying to make his way into the floor.
Right. And thank you very much, James Aveji. And as you know, we have our man right there in the Chamber of Parliament. And they're going to be bringing us all you need to know, all you need to see in that chamber. And that's why we're here. This is your election headquarters. Winston Amoy is here. Raymond Akwa is also here. And Winston, you were just finishing up on the point on what dragging the circumstance to a vote could mean.
Exactly. I mean, it delays the whole process. And if you're the majority, you don't want to do that. However, because we've seen in recent times this whole idea of punishing, and we've seen the conversation about, time to pay back the NPP, maybe they can do that. But I mean, what I would always say is that
we should hear Andre Siama, the second deputy speaker. Okay, so Andre Siama, that's okay. We'll get to hear them in detail when it is needed, because we wanted to be sure, because we understood that he may be in contention on the side of the NPP for the second deputy speakership.
But has his interest been filed?
That's a point.
Yeah.
As Kweku Asante confirms for us, it is Bernard Ahiafo, first deputy, whose nomination has been filed according to the new standing orders, and Speaker Bagbin alone. So for now, we have two who are going solo until further notice, Bagbin and Bernard Ahiafo. Honorable Yusuf Seni joins us back. Thank you very much for staying with us. Now, we wanted to understand what will make the NDC, with, call it a supermajority in the House, be willing to compromise, make such compromise by allowing, as Roxanne Dafeamekpo said, the MPP's wishes, if they came into the House and insisted that despite service of the court processes, injunction orders, injunction applications, stay of execution, processes, they insist that those members of theirs from the contested constituencies be sworn in, the NDC will not argue, will simply allow them to be sworn in. What would go into that kind of thinking on the part of the NDC? And unfortunately, the line to Honorable Yusuf Seni is not the best. Yeah, it's not the best. So we will re-establish contact with him and hope that we have a better line. You finish your point.
Yeah, so I mean, it's something that can happen. The NDC can decide that it's payback time, but whatever you do, it only makes you frustrated. I mean, it only delays the inauguration of President Mahama. But of course, the inauguration we're told is supposed to start at 11:30 a.m. So if they were to go into a voting that ends at, say, 6 a.m., they can still go back home and show up for the inauguration. So that's something that can happen. I mean, I see this as a trap. if I were the NPP. But this is the other point. What are they really going to do with the second deputy speaker?
Yeah, I mean, effectively.
What are you going to do with that? So the fact that the second deputy speaker comes from your caucus, what advantage does that give you?
Well, when the speaker is not available, when the first deputy is not there, it is the second deputy who is in charge of affairs in the House.
It comes to a vote. It comes to a vote.
But they have an influence in the way they moderate proceedings.
At the end of the day, it will come to a vote. You don't have the numbers. So really, what do you gain? So, I mean, if you are the NPP, you should be asking yourself these questions.
But we know how speakers can also frustrate processes, can frustrate government business.
Yes, but you see, the second deputy speaker in a parliament of this, you cannot frustrate anything.
Because whenever there is relevant government business, they know the people who have to be present in parliament.
Yes, the speaker. I mean, look, whenever there's relevant government business, the speaker, Alban Bagbin, will be there. If he's not there, Bernarda Hianfor will be there.
True.
Right. So we'll be talking about this particular 8th Parliament as well. And I've been listening to Oseche Mensah-Bonsu, the former majority leader, who says that this Parliament will rank 3rd in its performance among all the parliaments that we have had. His first will be the one that was led by Peter Alajete, and his second will be the one that was led by D.F. Annan. That predated Alajete though, and his third will be the one led by Bagbin. Irrespective of all the problems he has with Bagbin, he believes that this particular parliament has improved and enhanced our democracy, particularly in asserting parliament's, independence. Honorable Nusaf Seni, if you heard my question earlier, what's your response? Please unmute your mic.
My mic is unmuted.
Correct. We can hear you now. All right.
Thompson, can you repeat the question?
My question was, we have been told that the NDC is willing to make a compromise if the MPP insists that those MPs whose constituencies there are contentions, if they insist that they should be sworn in, the NDC will allow the swearing in of those MPs, even though their wish will be that the MPP does not insist, so that the court processes will be respected, and therefore there will not be swearing in for those constituencies. I'm sorry, but your line doesn't help us, so we'll try the last time and see how that goes. If you are just joining us, this is your election headquarters, and we are continuing our coverage. We are covering the inauguration, first dissolution of the 8th Parliament, inauguration of the 9th Parliament. There will be the election of the Speaker, 2 deputies, and the swearing in of members of Parliament. But as you heard from the NDC and the MPP, they all suspect there will be some problem of sort when it comes to who to swear in as a member of Parliament, particularly in respect of some 9 constituencies where there are litigation. So I suppose you were almost done with your point there. But Raymond, you have been a follower of this Parliament, particularly the work of Parliament. I spoke to Dennis Miracles Abuaji on Newsfile, and he said regardless of the hung Parliament, they were able to do any business they wanted to do. Like Akufo-Addo just spoke to us through Sona and said he had difficulties. Some of government business was frustrated. The question is, how different, what different do we expect the next Parliament to do from this one?
In fairness, I'm one of those who say, mindful of the history that our parliaments have been, let's not get it wrong. It was standard practice in political science class that Parliament is the weakest link in our democratic practice. In fact, it was often repeated consistently. Some use the expression rubber stamp. And even the 7th Parliament Speaker, Mike Ironokwe, before becoming Speaker, had written an article, Parliament of Ghana, Quo Vadis, basically raising the same issues about poor structures, not understanding separation of powers, not understanding what they call it, the overlapping role, and the impact they are supposed to make as parliamentarians, and the leadership too. So he took on Parliament. Then he continued the status quo during his time. So I am one of those who are willing to say this Parliament is an improvement over what has happened over the period. In fact, I was even willing to entertain the fact that if we had, say, 3 or 4 more of the hang parliaments, it would make an improvement.
I return to you to tell us what is it that a government wanted to do that it couldn't do in this parliament, for which you say that they were able to assert their independence and act as a proper check on the executive as required by the Constitution. Honorable Unusuf Seni is back. Yes, so what's your response to what could be informing the NDC's decision that they are ready to make a compromise and have the NPP have their way by having the contested constituencies, the candidate MPs elect there, sworn in, regardless of the fact that they would not be happy with such a situation?
To insist that the second deputy speaker will be of no consequence in the configuration of parliament because of the numbers. And I just want to draw his attention to Article 96, particularly Article 96, 1B, which says that the 2 deputy speakers shall not be from the same party. And so it's a constitutional injunct that you must have a deputy speaker from both, not from one side. So NDC must produce one, MPP must produce one. And that is why you require a deputy speaker from the MPP side. Now, the second...
But there are 4 independent MPs in the House.
So the independent members of parliament must caucus. The way we run our parliament in Ghana is that we have parties or parties. And so the caucuses, we don't have an independent caucus. So the independents must caucus with the parties, either the majority or the minority.
So the potential problem or potential issue that some have raised, are you suggesting cannot happen? That the NDC, if this situation becomes, as it were, contested, will rather sponsor someone from among the independent MPs to become the second deputy speaker, just like Andrew Asiamah has enjoyed?
So Andrew Asiamah's case was a totally different ballgame. The NDC, with 137 members in parliament, had realized that there was an opportunity for them to elect a speaker, and they had engaged backdoor with some members who were totally dissatisfied with Makokwe. And as part of the consideration was to get Andrew Asiamah, who was an independent candidate, member of parliament, elected. In fact, I had said repeatedly that the election of Andrew Asiamah as second deputy speaker and Joe Wise as first deputy speaker, whereas Andrew Asiamah was caucusing with the MPP, appeared to me to violate Article 96 1B because invariably the 2 deputy speakers were coming from the same party. And so it is my considered opinion that even if they want an independent, that independent must choose to sit with one party or the other. But having the speaker, having the first deputy speaker, and an independent member of parliament who might caucus with an NDC to take the second deputy speaker's position will muzzle out the minority in parliament. And that will not be good for our democracy.
There is also precedent. where Freddie Blay and Malik Al-Hassan became the deputy speakers.
Yes, but at that time that Freddie Blay became a deputy speaker, he was a member of the CPP.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
Now, so I mean that is my view, though, and that look, let's not, and that is not even good for our democracy. I mean, that's not good for our democracy. We must ensure, and particularly with this landslide victory, we must ensure that the voice of the minority reflects in all policies, in all debates, in all decisions, so that we can have inclusiveness in our deliberations. And so that's what I've said. One of the challenges of the speaker when elected into office will be how to ensure that even though the majority will have their way, the minority will have their say. Now that's for it. I think that it's a good start if actually what Honorable Dafeamapong is saying represents the view of the party or the caucus, in the sense that the caucus might be saying that, look, generally, if you swear in a member of parliament, that doesn't operate to kill or, frustrate a member of parliament who feels hard done by the declarations from going to court to vindicate his rights. And so it comes actually to nothing, because if that member of parliament is in parliament, you can still go to court to pursue your rights.
That's right.
And if your rights are upheld, that member of parliament will be removed from parliament. You see, so if that is the thinking, I think that it is based on the general consideration that nothing will change.
Except the fear has been what has become almost a general situation until recently, where we have the CJ issuing, directives that are ensuring that if you file a case today, it is heard tomorrow. Even Saturdays, Sundays, cases are being heard. Otherwise, once the person is sworn in, you could go to court and it could take you forever. That's been the fear.
Exactly, Samson. And I'm sure it is that fear that informed the MPP guys who lost the elections, or who were not declared winners, from going to court to seek mandamus. Because they simply feared that they were apprehensive that if they allowed the results to stand, then it will take them 4 years. Amu's case is a case in point, that 4 years after the member of parliament elect had served in parliament, Amu was pronounced the person who was otherwise declared, who should otherwise have been declared the winner. But
that was 4 also years the matter of the Isaac Edumaje situation. At the time, Babing was a lawyer for the NDC's candidate.
Who was a lawyer?
Babing.
Yes. So for me, I think that those who were acting by going to court to seek an injunction to compel the Electoral Commission to recollate, which in my view, and in your view, and in many other people's view, appear not to be supported by law, were doing so because they were apprehensive that if they didn't take immediate remedial steps, they might have to stay 4 years before their rights are vindicated. But that is not so. The Chief Justice has issued practice directions to ensure that election petitions are held expeditiously and to bring matters to a close very, very fast, enough for people to take up their representative role in Parliament. So if the Dafeamapong is saying that they will not object, he's saying that within the larger context of the fact that there are still avenues open for people who are aggrieved by what the Electoral Commission has done to seek resolution in court.
Right. So it is your expectation that once the dissolution happens midnight, then the new parliament, as in the swearing in, the election of the speaker and deputies, is likely to become a no contest, situation for Babing, for Bernard Ahiafor, and whoever we will begin to know. If you also know, may I share with us who will become the second deputy speaker, this will become issues of no contest, so they can quickly rise and return for the swearing in of the president-elect.
So Parliament has already been dissolved. That's why the speaker gave his validatory speech. The majority and minority also gave their speeches, their closing speeches. If Parliament is behind us, but by the effluxion of time, the Parliament itself will stand dissolved midnight today, 6th of January 2024. And some of you are aware that the tenure of office of members of Parliament is coterminous with that of the President. And so the President's office will cease to exist. Our President, Nana Akufo-Addo's office, will cease to exist midnight, 6th January 2024.
So if the president has anything he wants to do in the name of the presidency, he has less than an hour to do that.
To do that.
And even so, not anything substantive, right?
Yes, to do that. So it will go by the effluxion of time. It will go off, and the 8th Parliament, and the 8th President of the Republic of Ghana will cease to exist. Will become history, and so we can't have a vacuum. 1 minute after midnight, we enter the 7th of January, and we have to have a Parliament, and so the processes will begin to constitute the 9th Parliament, and also elect the 9th President of the Republic of Ghana.
People have been asking this a lot. By the explanation you just gave, does it mean that once we transition into the next day and the Speaker is elected, the Speaker is sworn in, it is the Speaker that, as it were, fills the vacuum left by the absence of a president?
Yeah, so technically, what ought to have been done was that immediately the Speaker was elected and the Speaker swears in the members of Parliament, and Parliament is duly constituted by the Speaker and the 276 MPs, or the MPs who will be sworn in. The President ought to have been ushered into the chamber to take the oath of office before members of Parliament. But because a convention has developed where the presidents-elect want the public to be part of the celebrations and festivities, they move Parliament to the Independence Square, and that takes time. Nobody occupies the office of the President within the time that the Parliament is sworn in and the time the President is sworn in. Nobody occupies that position. And so it is not. It will not be the case that the Speaker will go and occupy that position, because when you look at the Constitution, the only time that a Speaker can take up that position is not when the President is not there. It's when the President and the Vice President are incapable of performing their duties. Right. So you must have a President, you must have a Vice President who are incapable of performing their duties, and then the Speaker can act.
All right.
But in this case, we don't have a President, we don't have a Vice President. We have a President-elect and a Vice President-elect.
But that's intriguing, isn't it? The Speaker still will be the one to then, as it were, commandeer the army if there was war.
Yes, within the few minutes within the few minutes that the Parliament will have to reconvene at the Independence Square for the President to take his oath of office before them.
Okay. Thank you very much for your insights. Thank you so very much, Honorable Yunus Hussaini. He is former Member of Parliament, Tamale Central, and he's been minister in 2 different portfolios. He has a wealth of experience, under his belt. He was also on the Parliament's constitutional, committee. Right. Raymond, we're talking about relevance. We're talking about relevance of now, this parliament, and potentially what the numbers will mean.
Now, first, this parliament, I see it as an improvement over some parliaments we have seen over the period. You asked, what is the one thing? The only reason why 41 of those companies or institutions did not get their waivers till the last minute, and it still did not happen as we know it today, is because the numbers were so thin, a grouping stood up against it. In fact, there was a point that even some of the members on the majority side had the temerity not only to call for Ken Ofori-Atta's removal, but also to insist that some of these things should not be done.
Kwaku Kwarteng, who was head of the committee then.
See,
but he lost his job.
Yes, and of course, Kwaku Kwarteng was offered another job in Parliament. He rejected it. In fact, some of us know that when all of this conversation about who becomes Minister of Finance also came up, he was called and engaged. And we understand that he turned it down. So it enabled people...
He even had to write that article where he said that the country, the economy was being run like a Ponzi scheme.
True.
And that was not sustainable.
And to enable all of those to happen, you need the MPs to feel they are relevant to the scheme of affairs. And look at what happened in the case of Adwo Asafo. To the extent that the entire nation was looking for the woman who were willing to bend over backwards and do everything to make sure she comes into this country. That parliament was every decision could be contested, where it's not business as usual. In fact, there are negatives too, and nobody can dismiss that. It improved some people's bargaining chip. It made it easy for some people to demand more before they do their work. I felt some of the laws included not being able to pass that vote of censure. Again,
Ken Ofori-Atta,
pretending that the lives of our Kumsen were the best representation of the 30+ million people in this country to a ministry that she didn't know what their name even meant.
They tell you that she's been a performer and she's done well. In fact, she's been decorated for that with national honors.
Oh, Samson. Okay, today, I will not dedicate a lot of time and energy to responding to either Fati or, because I know Fati very well. And I know deep within her, she didn't mean those things. But she has to support the woman. I'm looking forward to a time where we put our best foot forward, if not nothing at all. This parliament, they raised issues. Samson, they interviewed that woman. She didn't know the definition of aquaculture. And yet, the highest number of votes did not go to Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah when they were voting in the House. So some of those ones were negatives that nobody can be happy about.
Indeed. The so-called minority then were compromised.
It was pretty obvious. It didn't make sense because it didn't make sense that the woman performed so poorly and yet she got the highest number of votes. Some other criteria might have determined that they vote for her. And it included minority MPs, obviously, because that 153 or so, or 150, was not just majority MPs.
Before you continue, I, as a reporter in Parliament, I was there when the majority deputy whip at the time called the castle and told the chief of staff that, no, before he told the chief of staff, he actually had liaised with the minority chief whip to raise issues of quorum. So they raised issues of quorum. He picked his phone and called the chief of staff and said that, Charlie, if you don't bring the thing, we cannot transact business. MPs are angry. Not long after that, they brought Ghana Must Goes to his office. Joe Asewusu tells Manasseh
in the book.
In the book, the president Ghana never got. So let me quote that one. At least I can mention his name.
I don't want you to even go far.
No, let him do it.
He says that whenever they are bringing things, they put something on it. What do they put on it? In fact, when I said on the midnight of the 6th of January 2025 that what we are seeing in Parliament, it is either they would hold the executive in check or the executive will pay more money. What we saw was that then there have to be negotiations. Let nobody convince me that Parliament doesn't do that kind of business. They do.
In fact, when they were passing at around 11 p.m., what's the name of that? The ESLA. It reached the point, I was in the press gallery, they asked journalists to get out. They sacked the journalists, and I saw those bags coming in. Up to that, I don't know the content of the bags. Big bags, like the big, the biggest of the bags that I can find.
The Ghana Must Go bags.
No, this one was actually not Ghana Must Go. They are travel bags, but they are bigger ones being dragged in there. I did not know the content. Indeed, since we were sacked, they conducted their business and we got Energy Sector Levies Act. 2015 is what I'm talking about. It was somewhere around midnight, that's when they did that. But yes, those things happen. And it makes no sense that somebody like Hawa Kumsin got through our vetting and all of that. But I actually think that Parliament of Ghana did well when it comes to e-levy. Parliament of Ghana did well when it comes to rejecting that budget. The very first one that contained the e-levy, the one that we were subsequently told was the reason why we had all our difficulties and all of that. I actually think that Parliament did well. Indeed, when the MPs on the majority side went out to say Ken must go, and that Apia Kubi and co, and subsequently he talked about how he suffered through and everything. But I felt those were proud movements of a parliament. I also felt that Bagbin was sometimes pushing for the collective interest of parliament. It might not necessarily be minority or majority. Of course, other times he was partisan. Other times you are not sure
when previous parliaments can boast of passing in excess of maybe 100 bills, 90-something bills, 80-plus bills, this parliament can only boast of some 36 bills. And even some of them have not received assent, including the private members' bills, about 2 or 3 of those. So
I personally, I frankly have not been so interested in how many bills it can pass. Let me be clear.
But that's a measure of how much work you're doing.
Oh, we can pass useless laws. Yes, it happens all the time. We do it. We can pass. This parliament in 2022, actually, no, they watched LI 2462.
Forest Reserve.
Which has led to the depletion and the destruction of our human beings in this parliament sat down and did that. So I'm not very excited merely seeing them pass laws.
The LI, Raymond is referring to the LI that gave the president the power in the national interest, quote unquote, to allow mining to happen in forest reserves, and some of which have led to galamsey in the forest reserves.
So truly, I am not...
But subsequently, because of the anger of Ghanaians, a process was initiated in the House that eventually saw to it that this should not happen again.
No, hold on. Have we removed that law? I kept on asking. I actually said it's the last act of Parliament that they should... See, we will be disgraced as a people if future generations come to read that what even colonial leaders did not do, we did to ourselves. That they felt that reserves were reserves. But when we had time to leave something to our generation, not only debt, we also destroyed the environment that was supposed to be. I think it's perhaps the most unconscionable we have done in a very long while, but it happened under this parliament. It happened under a parliament that was that's supposed to check better. So they had major faults. But I also think that they did a lot of good. Sometimes that is the only way we could be represented.
You spoke about e-levy. They were not successful in stopping e-levy. They had proposed, they had gotten to a point of seeking a compromise in the quantum or the threshold. That didn't work. Eventually, the minority walked out and the majority went ahead to pass
Which was also another.
Then the minority went to the Supreme Court. As we speak, their case is still pending in the Supreme Court, even though an injunction that they took to the Supreme Court was dismissed.
This is why...
I get you. Maybe finally, I was not expecting that this parliament would be a marked difference, because the people, when they voted them in there, they did not go with the mentality that they were going to be super MPs. Our MPs generally think that they are not only beholden to their parties, but they are there to help government do business. Their colleagues elsewhere believe that it is their constituents first. Our people do not have that mentality. And when you speak to even the new ones, it's worse. Some of them, we speak to them. They are nowhere near thinking about a true parliament.
We will be shocked what will happen in the next 4 years. I think the Ghanaian voter is now so aware and sophisticated. Let's not take him for granted or her for granted.
What do you mean?
What I mean simply is this. Look, the NDC minority did something. You can term it playing to the gallery, but they won them the election. Convincing. Yeah. Look, when the NDC sought to reach a compromise on e-levy at 1%, people said, yeah. They quickly said, hey.
Yeah. I saw that statement from Muntaka.
Okay. That is not our position.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, they had, at that point, there was a decision to agree to a 1%.
But two people had said it.
Yes.
Then Haruna Ndusu was leader.
That's right.
Yes.
And he stated it.
He stated it.
Then Muntaka actually, in fact, that statement I saw was from Muntaka. He said they had sat down and those earlier indications were proposals they had rejected.
Let me, so, and what they did, so the NDC minority, then, okay, they're still minority until midnight, I mean, gauge the mood of Ghanaians and always went to the side of Ghanaians. In the past, this wouldn't mean anything. But this time, it meant a lot. Okay? This is the thing. Alban Bagbin would sometimes try to make sure that the state will run. And I've seen, I mean, and I was in Parliament when, I think it was in 2010 or 11, during the passage of the budget. There was a mistake in the appropriation bill. So Joseph Boahin at the time saw it. And Parliament was going to rise on that day. Look, they went back, tried and balanced everything and brought it back. When we asked him, was he satisfied? He said, at some point, the state must run. So he just sought to point it out so they can correct it. But his duty, his plan was not to prevent the state from running. So there are instances where you'd have Alban Bagbin trying to bend to get things done. Because things must be done. And that's why he institute voting days.
That brings us to the question, what kind of speaker do you think he will be?
Well, you know, he has set, Alban Bagbin has set the standard high.
He's been part of all of the parliaments of the Fourth Republic.
Exactly. He set a very high standard for himself. He has a decision to make.
The true test
But
will be this time around.
I hope it doesn't come to pass. He may get carried away. If he does, posterity won't forgive him. Today,
he may get carried away
by the numbers and decide to do...
You don't expect an improved version of him?
I expect an improved version, but I suspect. I wish it doesn't happen, but I suspect he could get carried away, and that'll be it for him. But I just wish that Alban Bagbin, true to what we've known him to be, and we praise him today. In fact, we say that because of Alban Bagbin, you don't even have a concern about, you know, the absolute majority, because you believe Alban Bagbin.
Because he can be an effective check if he wants to.
He can be an effective check. But I just hope that some of the things he said were things to get him, you know, nominated. And
like I'm not swaying people. When there is no guarantee that you are going to be speaker.
So I just hope. Because you see, there's also the other school of thought here. And subsequently we'll come back to all of these. But there's that school of thought that even within his own party, Alban Bagbin is sometimes seen as a persona non grata. Because there are times they wanted him to do a few things that he didn't do. And so maybe this will be the time that he wants to satisfy them. But he doesn't need to do that at this point in time because they have the numbers. And so that is why I say he should improve what he did upon what he did previously. However, he could get carried away. If he does, we'll remember him like we've remembered Akufo-Addo.
Now, I believe that the true test of the Bagbin integrity will be now. It's easier when you have a split parliament and you are seeking to bridge the gap and you actually tilt towards the grouping that you happen to be from. But it is more difficult when there is a huge section from your party and you have to ensure that Parliament, I've been citing the example of the United Kingdom. John Bercow was seen as the member of Parliament who became Speaker and now acted as if he didn't belong to his own political party. And that he was so independent, his own people wished him out immediately. And that they were opposing him. They said he had, deep within his heart, joined the other side. Alban Bagbin would have to do that now. he would have to make sure that that minority group is properly represented and that he is able to be an effective check on the majority and the excesses involved. In fact, Lord Acton says power corrupts. And in our part of the world, there's every tendency to have absolute power that will corrupt to the core. Now, the power does not lie in the NPP to be an effective check. It lies more within his ability to play that role, and it is a bigger role. He's going to offend his own party people. He's going to act in ways that the people will regret even appointing him. And me, I think it was a bargain. It was a bargain that I felt was a good one. If Mahama says he has no interest in unduly influencing Parliament, I actually think maintaining backbone was the clearest indication of that.
That brings us, squarely onto the matter of Mahama issuing a statement and quote-unquote mandating the NDC majority to nominate Bagbin for speakership. You have heard the likes of Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh, who say this is completely wrong. Osei Chairman Sabonsu, Joe Wise, they all say this is wrong. Parliament is supposed to be independent, and it should not happen that it appears as if the speaker is one of the 6,000 or so appointees of the president.
Samson, do you know the hypocrisy in all of this?
The real politique.
The hypocrisy in all of the people you've mentioned, apart from H. Kwesi Prempeh, they all know. Okay? They all know. But this is it. I listened to Joe Wise. He says, oh, even though this is something that happens, you don't do it that way. So
you don't do it in the open. No.
You don't do it in the open. That's the problem.
The problem everybody has with this is that he wrote a letter.
Samson, and in fact, I'm happy you've raised this issue. The whole parliamentary system we run here is a joke.
True.
It's a joke when you have party general secretaries walking to parliament and insisting. And when you have party general secretaries, as part of filling nomination forms, people having to declare that they will be subject to the party's decisions in parliament. What kind of a system is that?
Is that what they declare to?
Yes, I am telling you, that's what they declare to. And I am aware, and I know that on authority.
But that's the whip system. It works everywhere.
The whip system that works everywhere is that you can then decide that I disagree with you. If you
Today,
disagree with your party, it doesn't mean that in the next moment your party should be calling you names and making elections difficult for you and start sanctioning you.
Today, Zara Sultana, Coventry MP, and 6 others, they are up in arms against their own prime minister. Yeah. The case, we cannot let more children go hungry in the United Kingdom. One. Secondly, it's unconscionable that UK is selling arms to Israel and using it to kill people in Gaza. MPs, on their own party, you see, they don't care about positions. No. They say their constituents are concerned about these issues and they push it. This unconscionable thing will make it look like political parties are the most important. You look at it this way. Tomorrow, a very rich cocaine dealer can buy the political party. Then everybody within parliament on one side will be controlled by the whims of this individual.
I'll tell you
contrary to the actual will of the people, then what was the use in the democracy?
I'll tell you a story. I mean, I like to tell stories. I'll tell you a story. You know, in 2001, before the swearing in of that parliament, there was a huge delay. And some people said it was the decision that the president had to make. The president-elect. He had not been sworn in yet as president. J. Kufuor had to make that decision whether or not he would appoint Peter Alajete as speaker or not. J. Kufuor makes it clear that Peter Alajete had lobbied everybody, that it was impossible for you not to make him speaker. Okay? So everywhere you pass, they said, as for the speaker, you give it to Alajete. Give it to Alajete. So, but they had their own differences. And so on the day, they waited here and there, but he had, from discussions that we had, we indicated that, well, it was difficult not to give it to Peter Alajete. By 2005, Alajete did not go back to go and lobby. Listen to this carefully. He didn't go back to go and lobby. J. Kufuor will tell you, nobody, apart from Sechi Hughes, told him that he wanted to be speaker. Alajete had incurred the wrath of his own NPP people. So the time found solace in the NDC, and that's why they brought him. But J.A. Kufuor says Alajete didn't come back to him. Even at that time, it was J.A. Kufuor who was nominating who should be Speaker. By 2009, President Mills was the one nominating, Justice Joyce Bamford Addo as Speaker. So we have been doing this thing. And so the hypocrisy for me today is that the participants in the process have found their voice.
Sometimes people who were the ones leading the nominations.
I am a man who doesn't believe in a fallacy. So I am not going to go for the messenger. I'm going to go for the message. Let us begin to change. If we think, let us change the system. The system that gets political parties to be taking screenshots, asking you to share your votes, and those kind of things.
Show evidence that you voted for our cause.
That's what the problem is. As for, this decision, why didn't Nana Akufo-Addo in Manasseh's book again, The President Ghana Never Got, were told, had actually
promised Justice of the Supreme Court.
Justice of the Supreme Court, that he wanted to make him Speaker and that he should go and resign. And the Justice said, make the announcement, and then I will go ahead and resign. You just don't come and tell me that you're going to make me
trust
Speaker.
Issues.
Well, you just don't tell me that, particularly in this case, that Justice had been promised Chief Justice and never got it. How sure am I you're going to do that to me? But my point is that, look, it is the reason Parliament is so weak. Unfortunately, the very people who take over, the Michael Quays who, present, thesis on what Parliament should be and how he wants to do things differently, and Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagwing, are all beneficiaries of the very process that they criticize and yet are unable to say anything. I think that members of Parliament, and you see, this is why I think that I believe in this. MPs have no business being ministers. They have no business being ministers. When we were parliamentary reporters in Parliament, consistently you hear members of Parliament, particularly first-timers or those who have no positions, when it was time for the budget or the State of the Nation address, consistently calling on journalists and saying, I want to do an interview so that you catch the eye of the president. Because your people continue to ask the question, when are you also going to be made a minister or a deputy minister? You heard Afenyo Markin make the point that, if they're going to appoint 60 ministers, it means that a lot of you become redundant MPs. My goodness. Is the member of Parliament's responsibility to just go and sit in a ministry, or he's there to enact laws and check the executive? We're joking too much in this country, Sam.
But, okay, sometimes too. What do we consider the real reasons we elect people to places? I don't want to mention it, but take the profile of Parliament today, including the 120 or so coming on board. Winston, are you convinced that all of these people were truly elected to go and check anybody, to make serious laws?
Imagine the president-elect put up somebody for Speaker. And the MPs for that particular party disagreed and put up a different candidate. And that candidate won. What happens to the power of the president? What happens to the moral authority of that president in the republic?
No, I get you.
Is that not why those who say
it defeats
those who say even if you have to be involved, it should be overt?
In fact, I think what
it
I also heard
covert, not overt.
Winston say is we all agree that this system of the executive controlling Parliament is unfair, is not proper, it weakens Parliament.
Because Parliament is supposed to be a check on the executive.
Let's start from the top. Conceptually,
if
we agree.
It's supposed to be a check on the executive, and now your Speaker is being nominated, literally, by the president.
Except that when you mostly say you are supposed to be a check, it should go hand in hand. It is not only separation of power, it's checks and balances.
That's right.
Not only the checking, it should be balanced a little bit along somewhere. So the executive cannot be useless, except we have an overbearing executive, which then becomes a problem. My difficulty is that we all, and I know a few people who admit that this current system is good enough, I think our proposals are for the future and the improvement of the system. I'm even convinced that if Mahama had the opportunity tomorrow, he will not do the same thing. You get my point? But we should also not pretend that this is the biggest slap Parliament has received. You get my point? So that's where the hypocrisy thing comes in. Almost as if by merely saying so, The man has really gone into parliament and has decimated the house beyond repair. It used to be a perfect house. They were delivering. They were conscionable men and women who were not controlled by party. We know that's also not true. So I agree, and we should move forward by saying this should not happen again. We should improve our systems. Let's give more independence to MPs. Let them be true representatives of people of Jabe, Mankesib, whichever area they are supposed to come from, so that truly we'll consider them as such. And let them not incur people's wrath merely because they are representing the interests of their constituents. That is where the difficulty is. And again, constituents should elect the right people, not people who are only interested in using them as pedestal for ministerial positions. You get my point?
MPs have no business being ministers.
I agree, but I mean, some people, their only interest is I want to be a minister. So the route, which makes sense, because 50% and more should come from parliament, will be to go to parliament.
And you know, you hear this.
Also because they know on their own, nobody will make them ministers. And let's be fair, some of the people, they know that by their own competence and qualifications, nobody will make them anything. So parliament is the cheaper route. Come and do and get your constituents. So tomorrow, if Muhammad needs 50 people, the people in Samson's hometown will be up in arms. The MP is not on the list. And that we're also Ghanaians and we deserve a representation. Almost as if 276 people could be ministers today.
Right.
That is where the difficulty is.
If you are just joining us, we have been bringing to you what is happening in Parliament. And as you can see in your shot, the members of Parliament now are getting fully ready. Because they have less than, is it 10 minutes?
Yes. No, a little over
also,
10 minutes.
A little over 10 minutes. Yeah, they have about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. To get ready because the 8th Parliament, with Babing as Speaker, Esiama as as Second Deputy Speaker, and Joe Wise as the First Deputy Speaker, stands dissolved by midnight. In the next about 15 minutes or so, it stands dissolved. The language of the Constitution in Article 112 of the Constitution says that a session of Parliament shall be held at such place within Ghana and shall commence at such time as the Speaker may appoint by constitutional instrument. Then 113, I think that's what I really wanted to read. It says, subject to clause 2 of this article, Parliament shall continue for 4 years from the date of its first sitting and shall then stand dissolved. Parliament shall continue for 4 years from the date of its first sitting and shall then stand dissolved. The date of the first sitting of the 8th Parliament is 7th January 2021. So the 4th year, the day on which it stands dissolved is tonight. So that's what is happening. As Inusuf Husseini gave us the education earlier, we had Parliament in session, we had Babing presiding, we had the Majority Leader give a speech, we had a couple of speeches, right? And those were sort of their farewell speeches.
Closing remarks.
Closing remarks, so to speak. Yeah. And to be frank with you, I got somebody ask me, because I was watching at the time Afenyo Markin was speaking, and the person asked, is this Afenyo Markin? I asked why. That his tone.
Very conciliatory.
Yeah, and
he explained.
He explained.
Yeah. He said sometimes, the Buga is required when things are not going well because there's pressure on him too.
Right.
Because in politics, you have to be seen to be delivering. And that when you are dealing with very difficult people on the other side, so some of the people will agree with you right now, within 2 hours, they have come back 5 hours later.
Indicates that there are times they reached an agreement. They reached a consensus.
Yeah.
Only for them to show up on the floor of Parliament and everything.
So he has to now invent Buga to make sure that it works the way, and that Generally, this is his behavior. Almost like explaining to everybody. It's almost like when he was campaigning for the position. So really explaining to people that I'm not like this on a good day. This is my demeanor. This is a very gentlemanly approach that I come to this table.
Okay, so that's about it. Like I was saying, Article 113 of the Constitution says that the Parliament shall continue for 4 years from the date of its first sitting and shall then stand dissolved. So after that particular meeting where the Speaker left the chamber, the Parliament had concluded its business. The 8th Parliament had concluded its business, but it was not in fact dissolved. It was not in law dissolved. In law, it stands dissolved in the next 10 minutes or so.
So no matter what happens?
Yes.
So if they sit down to the next 10 minutes, if they start business even the next 10 minutes, it still stands dissolved.
Yes, there's no need for a ceremony.
Yeah. And I suspect that's what they're waiting for.
Okay.
Right.
Once it's midnight, then there'll be the election of the Speaker, even though we had been told earlier that it was going to be at 11:05. Then later we realized it was going to be after midnight. So I'm sure right after midnight you would have that happening. What actually we want to know, because we know of the incoming minority, you know, of the leadership. We know Alexander Apenyu-Marking. We know of Patricia.
What we don't know is the majority leadership.
Yes, you know of Arnaud Dompré as a minority chief whip. You know. Also of Jerry Ahmed Shaibu, who is the second deputy minority whip. And Habib.
Jerry is my mate.
Oh, okay. Also, Habib Idrisu, yes, the MP for Tolong, who is the first deputy minority whip. What we don't know is that of the majority. Now, Kweku Asante had indicated earlier that it looks like you're going to have, majority leadership of KCL Atuforsen as majority leader.
Continuing.
For now, and you'd have, Emmanuel Amakofi-Boa as deputy majority leader, Kwame Gavin Zagboja.
As in the current leadership.
Leadership. And,
So those in the minority leadership will transform
into the majority
leadership.
Yes.
But you're saying that is temporary.
Temporary, because we all know that Atuforsen will be made a minister. I'm not sure. I don't want to put out the portfolio out yet, but he definitely will.
So why not do it now? Why not give the positions to those who will occupy it long enough?
There's actually a conversation about who should be the majority leader. So in the absence of that...
You mean that beyond the conversation that said Mahama Ayariga was leading?
I mean, you've seen there's a strong push for Mahama Ayariga. Earlier, because he served on the transition committee, there were those who expected him to be made Attorney General.
Right.
Then there was a strong push for him to be made majority leader. Then, in fact, earlier, some people actually suggested to Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, because of his anti-corruption drive, he should be majority leader. But he's also going to be made a minister. So, then you have... Mohamed Mubarak Muntaka also emerging strongly. Now, this is what I want us to do. In 2009, when Professor Mills took over, at the time, you had Alban Sumana Bagbin as majority leader. You had John Tia as deputy majority leader. And E.T. Mensah as majority whip. Then, one of the deputy majority whips was Paul Evans Edu. Paul Evans Edu subsequently was made Western Regional Minister, and so there was a replacement for him. What I'm trying to say is that sometimes when they come out like this, in the absence of ministerial nominees, they can just come in and say, these are the people we are presenting.
In any case, they can change leadership any day.
Particularly when they have a problem, and where there's a problem on who becomes the majority leader in this case. So I'm sure there's a lot of consultation going on here and there.
No, you mean what they call Alexander Apenyu-Marking has just pulled away the General Secretary and the National Chairman of the NDC into some caucus meeting in the dark. I'm not sure where they are heading truly. it could be that he's not having his head when it comes to second deputy speaker. So consult the big boys who might be the actual people behind the decision, at least in the absence of John Dramani Mahama, and see whether they can impact that particular decision at the front bench and make that happen for you. Because the NPP is bent on, if for nothing at all, having a consolatory position of a second deputy speaker coming to them. And that would have made a lot more sense. For Afenyomakin, it will be a good step in his own leadership now that he's coming to the foray. Because he's received a lot of lambasting in the last time he acted and became substantive before they went into opposition. So if he starts by being able with a small number to win second deputy speaker, it will be a very, very good step. It will be a good start. It will be an indication that he's worthy of being made or continuing in that position.
Right. Let's quickly go back to the House, the chamber, which stands dissolved, as in the 8th Parliament, stands dissolved in the next 5 minutes or so. And then the new Parliament, that is the 9th Parliament, will begin the process of electing Speaker and 2 deputies. The Chief Justice should be in Parliament by now, I suspect, and will do the swearing in of the Speaker. The deputies will also take their positions. And then the Speaker will now be the one to swear in the members of Parliament who have been duly elected and gazetted by the Electoral Commission as members of Parliament elected by their constituents to represent the constituencies. Kweku Asante Aman in the chamber joins us again. Kweku, we are getting closer to this 8th Parliament dying.
Parliament will expire in 4 minutes, actually, and the countdown is on for the 8th Parliament to expire in the next 4 minutes, which will signal the birth of a new Parliament. And as we speak, the Chamber of Parliament is all but filled. I can see very few empty spots in here, very few empty spots. Almost every particular seat is filled. And true to form and true to what we've seen, the NPP majority have filled this pew, they filled that pew, and they filled the next, with a few NPP MPs sitting with them. But if the count as we have it is anything to go by, they will have to fit into the very first pew. But the space is now filled up, and any moment from now, we expect the clerk to Parliament to come in, and then the proceedings will start. Ordinarily, there will be a roll call, as we have seen with the processes, and that is where there will be a few challenges with a number of the MPs who are here but have been injuncted, like the MP for Akwetia, who has a clear court injunction on his head, but he's here. Unlike his other colleagues who have the Parliament-issued ID card on their necks, I don't see one on his neck. That may be instructive. It may mean that Parliament itself hasn't taken him through the entire registration process. I don't know that for certain, and we'll get to know that pretty shortly when Mr. Ebenezer Ahuma-Jetro takes his seat, and then the countdown begins with MPs called out in a roll call fashion in an alphabetical sense, A to Z. And then once all that is done, they will invite for somebody to nominate the Speaker. Alban Bagbin will be nominated. We don't expect the NPP to nominate any person for that matter. It will only be the Alban Bagbin who will be nominated. And then also, Bernard Ahiafo will also be nominated for the first deputy speakership. And then we'll see who is nominated for the first deputy speakership position. So the 8th Parliament, let me look at the time again, all but expiring now. In fact, it's 2 minutes away or less, 2 minutes and a few seconds for the 8th Parliament to die and for the 9th Parliament to succeed. Once the clock strikes midnight, the expectation will be that the clerk to Parliament will take a seat. I've seen the minority leader, Minority Leader Alexander Afenyomakin. It will be a big struggle for the second week, shifting the minority to majority and all the issues that will come with it. But he has just stepped out, and the leadership also, some of them following in tow. And just in a while ago, we just got some confirmation. Let me give that to you that A+, Kwame Asare-Obin, has decided to caucus with the NDC side, which will mean that all the 4 independents have now decided to caucus with the NDC, and A Plus finalized this deal in a conversation with the majority leader, temporary majority leader, Dr. Kassil Atoforsen, in his office. And so we expect that any moment from now he will come in, and then all that will be done. And so that is the indication we are getting. And so this will mean that as we speak, the NDC have 187, that is 183 of the MPs who have been validly elected and declared as NDC candidates who have been elected. And then there are the 4 independent MPs who have also decided to caucus with the NDC side. That brings it to 187. And that is above the 184 that is needed to form the 2/3 majority that the NDC have been pushing for, which will allow them to amend non-entrenched constitutional provisions, which will allow them to annul constitutional instruments when they are put before Parliament, CIS, allies, and what have you. That is crucial for them. And so the seats are filled up here on the NDC side. I've been going through to see if I've not seen any notable face, perhaps with the exception of the majority leader himself, Dr. Kassil Atoforsen, and his deputy, Emmanuel Olamah Kofi-Boah. Everybody is seated currently in the chamber. Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa just came in there taking some pictures with some of his colleagues. A lot more of them have come in. It's a similar situation in the majority side. And so, Samson, it's 12 o'clock on the dot, and it's just past 12 o'clock now. It's official. The 8th Parliament is dissolved, and we are now in a new dispensation, the 9th Parliament, albeit the processes that is necessary to give life and oxygen to this Parliament is yet to commence. And speaking about who, Dr. Kassil Atoforsen has also just entered the chamber. You can see there in a conversation with Emmanuel Olamah, with Kofi Adams right at the dispatch box, and he is just headed to the majority side to have a conversation with Frank Anno-Domprey. And so he's also here. Emmanuel Olamah Kofi-Boah is also here. And we expect that any moment from now, the clerk to Parliament, the acting clerk, Ebenezer Ahumah-Jetro, will take his seat together with the table of his leadership. They will ensure that the countdown is on. And for those of you who are just watching us and being intrigued about the fact that the old faces in the NDC side are still seated in the majority leadership front bench, that is the indication we are getting. They are going to be there on a temporary basis up until the NDC firms up. We do not know who is going to be put up. It may be Mahama Ayariga. The names have been going around suggest the party may also decide that they will stick with these persons. That is if John Dramani Mahama is not appointing any of them into the executive. So with the 8th Parliament officially expiring in the last 1 or 2 minutes, well, A Plus has also just walked in. A Plus walking there, coming to the majority side. He's there speaking with the Honorable Haruna Iddrisu, exchanging pleasantries and welcoming him to the majority side, and also speaking to Alhaji Collins Dauda, Mahama Ayariga, and then he will keep speaking to his colleagues. These are the persons for the next 4 years who are going to be his caucus mates. They are supposed to be an indivisible figure. If you look at the standing orders, if the independent MPs formed up to 7, they could have formed an independent caucus and elect, for instance, the leader of the independent caucus, deputy leader, a whip or whatever, but they don't have 7, and so they must necessarily join either of the caucuses, and all of them have decided that they will join the NDC. And so he is now walking in, talking to NDC colleagues with his preparation to sit in. I've also just seen that the clerk at tables documents have just been brought, and so clerk at tables documents have been brought, which will signify that also pretty shortly he will also come in and take his chair. Ebenezer Ahumah-Jetro, he is needed. For those of you also watching us and listening, Alban Bagbin has no role to play in this process up until he is formally proclaimed as the Speaker of Parliament. When he's proclaimed as the Speaker of Parliament, the Chief Justice will then come in and swear him in, and then he will consequently swear in the other members of Parliament elect who've all taken their seats. The sea of white you see in here are NDC MPs who are excited about the overwhelming majority that has been returned for them, overwhelming majority that the Ghanaian people have given them. And so they are excited about that, and they are wearing white. NPP MPs, not so much of a dress code, all of them wearing what they can. Some of them in black suits, others in fugu, in multiple colors. And so that is the situation here, and then any moment from now, the 9th Parliament is expected to come to life because the 8th Parliament, as we speak, has expired. Samson. Well, the clerk to Parliament has walked in. The clerk to Parliament is coming in, which will mean that proceedings will begin any moment from now.
Yeah. Hello.